Hello.
Hey,
There you are. Are you in the office or at home?
at the office.
Oh, okay. Hi, Katie.
She's still connecting. Just as a reminder, we are broadcasting live on YouTube at this point.
Okay. So I shouldn't say so. How about those Bears?
Bears have a team? I'm sure it's not a fun time in Chicago right now.
Yeah, they're the sport columns are saying people are checking their resumes now. And then a rumor came out Monday that there's a chance that a former player by the name of Trace Armstrong might be brought in as a position to which the coach and the general manager would report to. I have no idea why you would create another layer. But he happens to be an agent now, and is one of his clients is Matt Nagy, the coach of the team.
Hmm.
So figure that one out.
Yeah. I don't think they should get rid of Nagy. I think what they should do is say a clean house on the president and then GM.
There's something going on at the top. I mean, the draft, they haven't made some too well, other than the new quarterback who's getting pounded because he's so new.
Yep.
Other than him,
Head coach takes a lot, but you don't know what's going on inside, and that's certainly fine. But
yeah.
and I respect that. I just they rotate too many quarterbacks and too many head coaches. It's time to start rotating a little higher up, I think.
I disagree with that. It's Nagy's sons go to a high school called Lake Forest High, which is it's a very nice community. Lake Forest is, and they were playing a divisional playoff game against an area high school, and the student section, and maybe even the parents from the other high school, started a chant called "Fire Nagy." Now his sons are on the football team.
Yeah.
So the school stepped in, the teachers that were there, the chaperones stepped in and stopped it right away. But my God, you know, okay. Will you be around tomorrow morning? I got a list of things I got to run by you, get some
Yep.
guidance. Okay. I'll follow
Sure will.
because I knew today is shop because of this. At the moment, I have one. Oh,
Katie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Took a long time for you to come up on audio.
I
It's spinning.
I stepped away from my desk for a moment.
Okay.
hi, Katie.
All right. And you're co-host, right? You see
Yeah.
that? Okay. Super. Thank you.
Hey, Carl,
Yes, ma'am.
Scott Kajawa just called.
Yes.
He was asked to sit in for Robert Sepulveda for Fort Worth as the team leader. And he just called me. He said he thought it was approved and we knew about it. So you want to let Steve know?
Well, Steve's right here.
Or is it, I don't know, Dogworth. Because the schedule,
Steve,
probably
were you aware of this? I don't remember.
What now?
Were you aware that Sepulveda was not going to be here today representing?
I was not. Yeah, I saw him on Facebook. He's going to New York or something. I didn't realize he's on the agenda. So no, he didn't say anything to me.
So who's filling in for him again?
Scott Kajawa.
I didn't walk him through it or how to do it or anything. So oof.
Well, he's been in touch with the agency because he was actually saying that the agency was looking for the YouTube.
Cindy, I can barely hear you.
Yeah, you're fading in and out.
That's weird. Okay. Let me turn up my volume.
Are you on the headset?
No, I hadn't looked it up. Can you hear me better?
Not really.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yep,
Much better.
clear
Okay.
as a bell.
Okay. He just called and he was looking for the YouTube link for the agency, and I said, well, I just sent it like 8 minutes ago. So he has been talking to the agency, and I didn't even make the connection that Seal Beach had taken Robert off of their list of participating today because he was on vacation. They let me know
Seal-
that yesterday.
Seal.
I mean, Seal Beach, because he was going to be as their division chief.
Seal Beach has got Nathan schooling. You're talking about.
No. He was also Sepulveda because he's their district chief, or he's over all of them. He was going to sit in today.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Robert Whitmore's here for Seal Beach.
Right. But Sepulveda was going to be, like as their mayor, their VIP.
Right.
But they told me yesterday he was not going to be on because he was going on vacation. But I didn't even think about him as being the team leader for Fort Worth.
All right.
So Scott Kajawa.
I have it on my list.
Okay.
So
Does Scott have the Zoom link?
He's got everything.
All right.
I'll have a chat with Robert when he gets back.
Steve Dirksen, can you hear us all right?
I can, sir.
Super. Thank you. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Super. Got a little snow on the ground out there?
Yeah, we're in the middle of a blizzard right now, actually.
Good for business.
Yeah, you can say that. My fingers crossed that we didn't lose internet, but we haven't so far, so it's looking better.
Cool. Brad, how you doing?
Doing good.
Awesome.
How about you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Looking forward to this being the last Zoom meeting of the year.
This won't be your last Zoom meeting of the year.
I think it is.
Really? Well, I'll have to set one up with you then, just so I can prove you're wrong.
That's wrong.
Yeah, Christmas Eve would be perfect for that.
How you doing, Jesse? Hey, Ron.
Yes.
Hey, I accidentally clicked you into the hearing room. I can't, if I kick you out, I will. You will not be able to get back in. So I'm just leaving you in here for now. Okay.
Okay. I'll turn off everything. So.
All right. Morning, Greg. You're muted.
Yeah, got that. Sorry.
No problem.
Morning.
Sun not quite up yet, huh?
It's getting there. Coming up over the horizon.
Well, the good thing is we have a quorum. How you doing, Ken?
Not too bad, thanks. And yourself?
Not bad.
Very good.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, Carl. I got a notice that the meeting was being live streamed. It was stopping me. I didn't realize it was stopping me from unmuting. So we're all figured out now, though. Good morning, commissioners. I see just scrolling across. Looks like we've got lots of the team on board. Good to see you all again.
Morning to you and everyone else.
And you, Sal.
Morning.
Morning. I know I was chatting with John Butler the other day about telestaff being down. Are there other people around the table who have a similar challenge right now with the ransomware attack on UKG Kronos?
Absolutely. It's taken up the last 2 days.
Yeah, certainly proves whether you have manual backup systems in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah, we were just in the process of selecting all of the next year's vacations and time off benefits, and one shift had it all done and had it backed up on an Excel. The other two are going to have to go back through and do it all again.
Yeah, and then there's the additional challenges if your systems are the same, where our telestaff kind of populates our payroll automatically, so all that's having to be done manually for 1,300 plus firefighters that are in the telestaff system.
Wow.
I'll tell my office manager that. That'll make her feel better.
Yeah. You wrote also Fargo was in the Canadian news, and I'll stop with this yesterday or last night, as it looks like Manitoba may be shipping some ICU patients to North Dakota.
Really?
Yeah, you might not have heard that, but it was in the Canadian
I've not heard
news.
it. All I hear is that the hospitals are full. So.
Oh, maybe there's no space. Anyway, I'll stop there because I'm sure Carl is just about ready to call the first group in.
We are all set. We have a quorum, and Katie, if you'll let in Rhoda, Fire and Emergency Services, Spain, we'll get this thing underway.
So we should say hola to these folks, I guess, eh?
Yes, say hola, eh. All right, I think they're all joining right now.
Awesome. Good morning, Jerry, or afternoon, depending on where you're at.
Yes, good morning. Sorry, I was on mute.
Good evening, I think. Rhoda? Yes?
Good evening. Good evening. Or good afternoon.
Awesome. All right. Chief Dongworth, we got everybody on board. It's all yours.
Thank you. So first of all, we'll kick off as always with some announcements before we get going with Rhoda Fire and Emergency Services. As always, I want to say thank you to the peer assessors, the technical reviewers, the volunteers, my fellow commissioners who commit literally between us thousands of hours a year to CFAI and the accreditation process, I should say. I'm still learning. So heartfelt thanks to those folks, many of who you don't see today, but really are the heart of the operation in terms of making things happen at the magnitude at which they happen. Also, today wanted to remind everyone that we are being recorded and casted to YouTube. So we are live, and also people can go back in after the fact and take a look at the recording if needs be. So with that said, our first agency today is NAVSTA, Rhoda Fire and Emergency Services, Rhoda Spain, first accreditation. So I see we have team leader Jerry Nollner here ready to do introductions for the team from Rhoda. So please take it away, Jerry.
Correct. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you're from or at, or in Rhoda, evening. And that I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present Naval Station Rhoda Fire and Emergency Services for consideration for accredited agency status. This is their first time, as the commissioner chair stated. And that first, I'd like to introduce the site visit team. I had Deputy Chief Tim Farmer from Henrico Division of Fire and Deputy Chief Tim Richard with Olathe Fire Department. Chief Shane Rayfield and the accreditation manager, Assistant Chief Nathan Olberding. Sorry about that, Chief. We'll introduce those representing the agency in just a little bit. The site visit was conducted November 7th through the 10th, just over a month ago. The agency was open and honest on the site visit, was able to see a lot of things happening, a lot of interesting aspects with Rhoda Fire and Emergency Services. And one big interesting aspect is that the United States does not own the land that the installation is actually on. It is actually owned by the Spanish government, and the U.S. is basically just renting the space that they have for the airfield and all the facilities and that they have on there. The other thing that they have that's interesting is it's a 30-70 split on the workforce. So it's 30% U.S. citizens and 70% local nationals that are on the fire department. Another thing is that they have protection from the Spanish government. Actually has a fire station on the other end of the airfield, and we saw that in operation. How the interaction goes between the U.S. and the Spanish government with a couple of incidents that happened while we were actually on site on the airfield and that. So a lot of good things. The agency was very willing to state what was good and some areas that they had some concerns with that while we were on site. And that attributed to the 7 recommendations that the team made, which the agency's been working diligently in the short period of time that we've been away from the site visit, but they've been working on those recommendations. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Naval Station Rhoda Fire and Emergency Services site visit team to recommend accredited agency status for Naval Station Rhoda Fire and Emergency Services. I'll now turn the presentation over to Chief Rayfield for a few comments, and then once completed, we're prepared to answer any questions.
Okay, hello, Jerry and team. First of all, I want to thank the peer assessment team, Jerry, Tim, and Jeff, for coming all the way to Rhoda, Spain. I know it's difficult due to the COVID situation. You guys came out here, and even with jet lag, you guys were pressing on 8-10 hour days, and we truly, truly appreciate that. You did a deep dive within our department and looked at our programs, and we're excited to address the 7 items that you've brought to the table, if not more. First off, I'd like to introduce you to my chief officers. I have Nathan Oberdeen. Again, I have, he's my accreditation manager. I have Thomas Wiley. I have Stephen Cox, and I have Sean Herrera.
Hello.
Also, I'd like to introduce you to one of the key players within our organization, our commanding officer for Nav State Rota, Captain David Baird. Without his tremendous support with the department heads, this would have been pretty impossible. He was a lead on getting us everything we needed and signing off on all the checks basically, and just steering the ship, so to be, I guess, the aircraft. So Skipper, would you like to say a few words?
Thanks, Shane. First off, I just want to add my thanks to Jerry and the team for the site visit and for giving us great feedback to allow us to continuously improve. We're humble enough here to recognize that we're never perfect, and there's always opportunities for us to improve. And this process, the accreditation process, helps facilitate that. So I thank you and for making the trip out, and the entire accreditation team for helping us always work towards a better product.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and probably not too tough a decision to come to Spain for a site visit, even given COVID. But anyway, a great report, and glad to see you coming forward for accreditation. I'm going to ask Jim Keating, Chief Keating, to ask the first question, please.
Thank you, and congratulations, guys, on the excellent job going through this the first time and coming out with that few recommendations. My question is around Category 7, and there it was noted that a number of the facilities did not have vehicle exhaust systems, or maybe they were not working as well. There was gear stored in the apparatus bays, ice machines, and etc. With cancer being such a big issue on our minds, particularly in the fire service today, I was just wondering if there was any plans in place to move forward to make some of those corrections.
Yes, sir. That's actually a good one, sir. So the first thing we've done, we have received our second set of bunker gear. So that'll assist greatly with the change out of gear during incidents. Okay. And we document the washes before and after every time we do it with fire. We've updated our SOP to make sure that everybody's taking a shower after every call. We're also working on separate gear locations, and we have funding documents that we've already worked with NAFAC. NAFAC is our public works basically, and we submit funding documents through them. Of course, the funding comes later through the year to actually house the gear in a separate location than where it's at right now. In regards to the no smokes, we do have some on the apparatuses, but again, we're working toward putting them on the crash trucks. And we even have a Station 3 renovation that's taken, it was supposed to take place this month, but it has been pushed to FY22. That's going to solve a lot of those issues with that facility alone. If you don't mind, Chief Herrera, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, the project that we submitted for has been in the works since 2012. So we've identified that there is a need for the exhaust systems. Like Chief was saying, we have no smokes on a couple of the apparatuses, but we have worked to identify some of the projects. I have a meeting in January with Public Works for an installation integration team, and I'm going to present the project for the Station 2 and Station 1 to be rehabbed for the PPE and identify the exhaust systems.
Now, the ice machines we actually have already moved the ice machines to the kitchen, and the other ice machines, sir, to be honest with you, it's out. We took it out of service until we're able to move it to another location, but we've decided to move those to the kitchen locations.
Well, wow, excellent. You guys have moved forward and done a lot since the site visit. So congratulations, and paying focus to a very, very important thing in the fire service today. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chief Keating. Chief Margucci.
Hey, good afternoon or good evening, Rhoda. I'm in Hawaii, so it's morning for me, exactly about 12 hours on the other side of the world. My my question, or rather, if you could explain a little bit more, is regarding recommendation 4, regarding airfield access for ARF responses, if I understand that correctly. Is your station located outside the flight line fence line? And have you been working with either airfield management or the security forces on a solution to possibly expedite access to the airfield in event of emergency?
Yes, sir. Hello there, Chief. So right off the bat, our stations are located within the flight line, so it's not an issue with our response. They installed these Linnell gates that require 2-type authentication. So we've already engaged with N6 or our tech, I guess not to talk too much N6, but it's our technical side of the house, and they're working to provide us cards where basically when the truck pulls up, you don't have to put a pin in, you just swipe it and go through the gates. But again, it doesn't impede our responses because the ARC trucks are inside the flight line. I hope that answered your question, sir.
It does. It does. It gives me a little bit more familiarity of the layout there. Appreciate it. And that's really all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Moriguchi. Let's go to Chief Dirksen.
Good evening, Rhoda. Welcome to the table. Congratulations on a good report. First time agency, glad to see you at the table and taking through the efforts to be here. My question comes first to the chief regarding recommendation number 2. Can you explain why in the past the high angle rescue certification was removed?
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. It took every bit of the 3 years I've been here to actually get that document signed. And there was a concern about it because the contractors on base while doing work, they are required to have their own rescue unit on standby. So we basically are the rescue to their rescue. Now, we do have certifications, sir. We do have equipment. And also we've worked with dispatch where the morning of, we know all confined space and all high angle activity going down. And then 20 minutes before any work is being done, we also get notified. It gets pushed over our entire fire stations. I have opened up discussion again about that because out of the 2, and I know we're going to talk about hazmat tech later, out of the 2, I do agree with you that high angle rescue is something we should look into. And I have opened up discussions with Region Fire.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that answer. And then just to the team leader, Jerry, what did you see there that hit that recommendation, or was it through the interview with the agency?
It was during the interview and that they had that requirement as far as being able to do high angle or low angle rope rescues and everything. And with a military installation or with any type of facilities and everything else, you have confined spaces, you have some high angle areas that you need to make rescues off of. So that was part of why the team felt that it was necessary that they needed to research and see if they could get that requirement back into their operation for that. And I'm going to say the same thing with hazmat. Would be the same answer there. But during those interviews and during the installation tour and looking at what their operations are, that those were areas that we felt that even though they had contractors that were coming in, you may not have contractors doing some of the work. It may be some members of the armed forces and they're doing some work, and they may need to have to do the rescue. So we felt that was a necessary component that they needed to look at trying to research.
No, I appreciate you both. You nailed both the questions I had there. So I won't dive into the hazmat question if it's going to be basically the same answer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. Not seeing any other questions from members of the commission. I just have one around recommendation number 7, which is around improving the station alerting system, core competency area. Can you just talk about the plan you have and maybe your timeline and making some improvements there?
Okay, sir. So the actual system was put in 2017. So when we got here a couple of years ago, it had issues right off the start, and it didn't have a sustainment plan to fix it. So right now we've been working closely with the company. We actually have the contractor coming out in February to take a look at it to tell us exactly what's going wrong. It's about 70%. However, we do not rely on that, and each firefighter is carrying a radio at this time, but we will get that thing up and running.
Okay, thank you. that gives some clarity on that. Again, I'm not seeing any other questions. One thing I want to recognize you for, though, is the team put in the report about the ICP that you have at Pier 1 and the functionality of that and how it provides, that climate control, elevated, quiet location to manage incidents on ships there. So I wanted to give, much as we've been asking questions about things perhaps that aren't optimal, certainly this is, something to be recognized, and congratulations for that. I'll do one last call for questions from Commission before, and if I don't hear any, I would ask that someone make a motion to approve ROTA for accreditation. I'm not seeing any more questions, so maybe a motion to approve.
Keating, approve.
Second.
Thanks, Chief Keating. A second?
Brad Arnold. Second.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Second, Bradley Arnold.
Thank you, Bradley. I appreciate that. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, NAVSTA Rota Fire and Emergency Services in Spain on your first accreditation. Well done. That's a great report. I mean, you have very few recommendations. The ones we've asked you about, you're obviously well on the way to addressing. So that's very impressive, especially for a first-time agency. So thank you again, and we'll make the arrangements to get the plaque to Spain somehow.
We're working on the plan, sir, to hopefully come to you, but thank you so much. And like I
Of
said,
course. Yeah.
we the entire fire department has embraced this since the moment I got here. So a lot of hard work has gone into it, and we're going to keep it up. And we're excited to see you. Like I said, we're going to try to come your way in March for that. Definitely want to bring my skipper to that, but thank you for the time. And we're really excited that we were able to do this before the end of the year.
Yeah, I've almost forgotten the times where we can actually meet in person. So it will be great to see you in Orlando in March if that all pans out. So thank you so much, and have a great the remainder of your day, which isn't very much, but thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commission.
Wow.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, next up is Detroit Metro Airport. In fact, they're one of the only municipal standalone airports accredited.
They're in and connecting.
Super. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
Super. Ron, I know you're connected. Chief Dongworth, all yours.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate that. Welcome to the accreditation hearings virtual again, although maybe for the last time, but welcome Detroit Metro Airport Fire Department, Detroit, Michigan, for your third accreditation cycle hearing. Great that you could be here today. Look forward to hearing more about your agency. But without further ado, let's hand over to Team Lead Ron Melser to introduce the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, and have this opportunity to bring Detroit Metro Airport in front of you guys today for accreditation status. I'm Ron Melser. I'm a division chief with Clay Fire Territory and the team lead. I had an awesome, this is my first team lead, and I had an awesome support team behind me for this visit. I had Mike Baraki from Sufex Fire Rescue out of Virginia, Ron Sims, a deputy fire marshal from Poudre Fire in Colorado, and Jeremy Cooper, a captain with the Lexington Fire Department in Kentucky. Our site visit took place in September from the 12th to the 16th. Detroit Metro Airport is located 21 miles from downtown Detroit. They cover the Detroit Metro Wayne County Airport, which is DWT. It's one of the busiest, and it's also an international airport in the United States, and it covers 6,700 acres in Romulus, Michigan. It is a Class 1, FAA Class 1 and ARF Index E. They also cover Willow Run Airport, which is a Class 4 and an Index A airport, which is about 2,000 acres, and it's about 25 miles from downtown Detroit. As our team dove into to all the documents, we found out that COVID played a major impact on the airport and the fire department. It led to elimination of the accreditation manager from the airport, which also was the police accreditation manager. So that responsibility was given to Chief Osuch to task to complete where the previous accreditation manager had left off. Along with the COVID, it also closed down one of their fire stations during this time. It did not impact any personnel or any of the apparatus, which they were able to move to other stations. During this time, they also had to still meet the FAA requirements for a Class 1 rating, in which they do. During the review, we found some gaps, and Detroit Metro Fire Department filled that in great for us. They gave us updates. We were getting updates at all hours to meet all this. One of the items that we found during our site visit that we thought really stood out to us was their robust CPR training program that they have, and anybody that requested. Most of the, I think it was half of the airport employees are all AED and CPR certified, and they have AEDs throughout the entire facility, which allows for having one of the largest, the highest save rate in the region for CPR. The team noted 9 recommendations for the Detroit Metro Fire Department for opportunity for growth and improvement. I'd like to thank Chief Osuch and their team for the hospitality and the hard work that they did before the site visit and during the visit. Now I'd like to turn it over to Chief Osuch to introduce his team and the members present.
Thank you, Ron. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commission. My name is Glenn Osuch. I am the Fire Chief and the Accreditation Manager at Detroit Metro Airport Fire Department. Today, sitting on my right is Deputy Chief Curtis Dunlap, and on my left is Captain Dylan Dominzik, who is also my assistant accreditation manager. I would like to thank Ron and the peer support team who came out on the site visit back in September. They were very helpful, and this team learned a lot from them. This is being our 3rd accreditation, like Ron stated. This is my first time through this process. I would also like to thank our CEO, Chad Newton, and our Vice President of Public Safety, Darrell Brown, who has continuously supported us through this process. And last but not least, the hard-working men and women of the Detroit Metro Airport Fire Department, where they protect the traveling public of this airport. We are currently in the process of promoting our next accreditation manager to replace myself. This should be completed within the next month. With that said, I would like to turn this back over to the commission, and if you have any questions for this at this time, you would be I'm happy to answer those questions for you.
Thank you very much for such. The one thing you actually answered the question I was going to ask, which was around the plans for the accreditation manager, given what's happened to you recently, and you've answered that. So it sounds like that is well on track. Also, as a matter of interest, last Wednesday I was in Detroit Airport on my way to some meetings of the board. So first time I think in Detroit. No, actually I've been there before, but and of course you're very close to Windsor, Canada, where you're located as well, which is a point of interest. Anyway, enough with that. We have a question from Chief Dirksen.
Yes, good afternoon, Detroit Metro Airport. Congratulations on being here for the third time, and thank you for being pioneers within the accreditation for being the only standalone municipal airport that is accredited that have taken this on. So you guys are trailblazers and really do appreciate your efforts, and hopefully we can get other standalone airports to become part of the process as well. My question goes to recommendation number one, and probably more towards the team leader. You're asking for more details in the critical task assessment. Did you find what was there verifiable and valid and things you were able to validate, and you were just looking for more, or was there something that was missing?
No, it was there. It was just we wanted them to expand on what they have and give it a little bit more detail to it. But everything we were able to validate everything that they had shown. It's just I think they have a lot more opportunity to grow and to expand for what they have.
Okay, and then to the chief, just to follow up on that, do you have a plan in place, and have you have somebody that's looking at this that's going to move this forward to give yourselves and give your public, so to speak, a better critical task analysis?
Yes, we have. I'm going to pass that question over to my assistant accreditation manager.
As the team lead, Ron Melser, spoke about, we do have critical tasks already assessed in place, but he emphasized on breaking it down more, which will give us a better data set, more specific, and it'll also help help us evaluate our service delivery. For instance, in category 5I was where we kind of struggled, and once they got on site, we were able to work through it. Is in our standards of cover, we have it listed as just aircraft like fires or incidents, where when you break it down between alerts 1, 2, and 3, we are meeting those benchmarks and we are providing a great service. But given how it's already it's lumped together as one critical task, all the data gets put together and it's hard to separate that. So by the end, we're looking by the end of 2022 to reassess all critical tasks. And the reason it might take us all the way till the end is because we're also going to have to go through and find a better way to code the runs that get entered in to get more accurate data.
Great. Thanks for that answer. I really appreciate it. And Chief, I hope you didn't have to become the accreditation manager for the police function of this as well.
No, I'm lucky on that. I appreciate that also.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. I actually have a question here around recommendation number 3, which relates to core competencies in 3 of the different categories around for reevaluating your benchmark times. And perhaps first go to the team lead, I beg your pardon, to answer that, and then we'll see if we need to put that to the leadership team as well. So on number 3, recommendation number 3, what did you see, and what's the plan to address that, I guess?
A lot of their, if I remember right, a lot of their times were kind of spread out a little bit. I think they can. I think once they reevaluate their critical tasking and that, I think they're going to be able to dial down a little bit the benchmarking and from off their baselines and everything. So it was just there was a little bit too much of a gap in there, and I think they just need to reassess that a little bit. And I think once they look at all the kind of relook at everything this year, I think it'll kind of fall right into place where they want to be.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess it's inextricably connected to critical tasking for sure. Any other questions? First of all, I was remiss in not picking up on the excellent work that you're doing there with CPR training and the save rates, the ROSC, I guess, that you see as a result of that in terms of really getting so many people trained in the DFib as well as, or the AED, as well as the CPR. So congratulations to you on that. Any other questions from Commission? Again, this is an excellent report, recognizing, as Chief Dirksen did, the only civilian airport we have in the accreditation world right now, and for accreditation, very few recommendations, and very few of them around critical competence, core competencies, I beg your pardon, and also work underway, I'm sure, on many of those. Not seeing any other questions from commissioners, can I ask for a motion to approve?
Move to approve, Dirksen.
Dirksen, move. And sorry, again, I think I heard Brad Arnold there seconding. Can you just confirm, Brad?
It wasn't me, but I'm happy to second.
Okay, fine. I just caught the tail end, and obviously I got it wrong. Anyway, we have a motion on the floor, seconded. Any further discussion on Detroit Metro Airport Fire Department? Not hearing any. Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, Detroit Metro Airport Fire Department, Detroit, Michigan, on your third accreditation. Well done. Again, a great report reflecting what's obviously a great organization and a great service that you provide. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Rogers Fire Department, Arkansas.
Both team lead and team are in connecting.
Awesome. Good morning, Chief Valdez.
Good morning.
Jet lag over with?
We're good.
Good. Good morning, Rogers, Arkansas. How you guys doing?
Good morning.
Hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Superb. Chief Dongworth, I think they're all ready for you.
Thanks very much, Carl. Welcome, City of Rogers Fire Department, Rogers, Arkansas, for your third accreditation. Again, glad to see you in front of us here today at what we hope to be our last virtual hearing, unless exceptional circumstances come forward in the future. But let's hand straight over to Amy Valdez, the team leader, to do some introductions. So over to you, Amy.
All right. Thank you so much. Like I said, this is Rogers' third accreditation. I was honored to be their team lead. It was an amazing department under the leadership of Chief Jenkins and the accreditation manager, Chief Hoyer. They had a fantastic team, and that's one thing that I'd like to just highlight about what the team observed on site is, sometimes you find a diamond in the rough, and I would say that we found several diamonds among diamonds. They had some really amazing employees who are committed to continuous improvement and are empowered by their leadership team to make those improvements. A couple of things, they have some solid practices and processes that are built. And I want to make sure that the commission recognizes that though there were a good number of recommendations in our report, I hope you were able to read in the writing that those recommendations are really centered around refining those processes. And they're definitely manageable for this agency in a 5-year period. We really work to help them grow in processes and systems that they've already put in place and try and help them find ways to tweak those and really move them to best practices for departments across the country. they're already a leader in Northwest Arkansas, and they're committed to being a leader industry-wide. One of the things that they do really well is their operational preparedness and training. We witnessed that on site several times with their units training. We also noticed that their community risk reduction is amazing. They were able to institute a sprinkler ordinance recently. They do stop the bleed, AED, and CPR training for their community on a regular basis. And a lot of our recommendations were to help them really do a better job of tracking and monitoring the metrics around that work that they're already doing, so that they can better tell their story and report the outcomes from the efforts that they already have in place. I'd just like to thank my team, Jen Sleemers and Marcus Scott. We lost a team member late, and we were a small but mighty team, but between their great and hard work and the committed efforts from Rogers, it is our honor to recommend them for accreditation for the third time. Chief Jenkins?
Yes, it's wonderful to see all of you. We had a great experience in this third cycle. We do it to get better, and we believe that the recommendations contained in the report are accurate, and they give us a good footing to continue to improve as a department. As Amy mentioned, this is our third accreditation cycle. It's important to share with the commission that not only is accreditation indoctrinated into the fabric of our department, but it's how we drive a lot of big decisions. And we're just wrapping up the construction of our 8th fire station, the hiring of nearly 24 new members to the job, a complete fleet makeover, extension to the training campus, a new P25 radio system, and a new 911 center. All of those have fingerprints from the accreditation process as the rationale and backing for why we did it. So we're honored to be in front of you. We enjoyed the visit from the team. I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight in one of the squares on the screen the cast of characters that make up our command staff within the department who make things happen. And so while I'm grateful to be the fire chief, make no mistake about where the real work gets done.
Thanks very much, Chief. And again, I would recognize the points that Amy made about the work that you do that's above and beyond, that's very positive, particularly the sprinkler ordinance. I think something that we're all challenged with. I think that's for multifamily construction, if I read the report correctly, but still a huge step forward and very progressive. Without further ado, though, I've got a few questions lined up from commissioners here. Bradley, I think you're first.
Thank you. Yeah, I did want to note the positive community risk reduction activities that were in the report, and certainly commend the team leader in regard to the specific recommendation on 5D. You sort of recognized in an indirect way the leadership of the fire department to carry that leadership into the entire city to adopt the NIMS protocols. So that's a good note. And when I looked at that, the recommendation, I was at first concerned that the fire department wasn't even following that. And then when you read through the report, it really is a challenge for the department to take the lead for the entire city. So I thought that was really good for the team leader, and also just goes to further commend the Rogers Fire Department and the CRR program.
Thanks for that, Bradley, for sure. Chief Keating.
Actually, Bradley asked my question. It's good to see you, Chief Jenkins. It's been a while.
Likewise.
I do have just a random question, and it really deals with Section 3. And your department, as well as all of our departments, really struggled through COVID when we're trying to update strategic plans. And reading how you went about that, were you able to seek any outside input from the public at all during that, or did you have to capture that entire rewrite within your department itself?
No, we were able to utilize a survey instrument and social media primarily to get participation there. So yes, Chief, we did solicit input from the public.
Well, excellent, and congratulations to you on the sprinkler ordinance. That's a tough thing to get through.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Chief Keating. Let's go to Chief Butler, please.
Good morning, afternoon, for some. I think the question I had has been kind of touched on already. Chief Valdez touched on it, and so was the conversation just now. And that's regarding category 3. And currently don't have a process to track incremental progress. Is that a past tense, or has that been addressed?
I can elaborate on that a little bit and then let Chief Jenkins speak. We had a good conversation on this. They absolutely have a process. It's a really good process. Rogers, based on the size of the organization and their structure, Chief Jenkins is able to be very hands-on and meet regularly with his people. That recommendation is really centered around us encouraging him to document that process so that it continues after he leaves. It's an excellent process that we want to make sure that when Chief Jenkins is ready to move on to the next venture, that process and system stays in place, because it's not documented right now. It's really something that's kind of cultural within the organization. And then Chief Jenkins, if you have anything else you want to add to that.
No, I think that's spot on. We want to refine that. And as a matter of fact, I can see gathered at the training center in the command staff, we have our analyst. We were fortunate enough last May to have a full-time analyst that's joined the fire department, which for a fire department of our size, about 154 career members. That's a nice feature. She'll be responsible for cataloging and maintaining the inventory of that particular function. Chief Butler.
Good seeing you, Tom.
Thanks, Chief Butler. Let's go to Chief Dirksen, please.
Yes, good morning. At least it is still here in Fargo for a few more minutes anyway. My question goes to the team leader. We have, we see this quite often, multiple recommendations about performance appraisals, or program appraisals, I should say. Were you able to verify and validate that program appraisals were done, and this is just a recommendation to enhance?
Yes, and I'll even add to that. I had discussed with Chief Jenkins that I wasn't going to include the ARC program in that list of categories that needed a recommendation, because theirs was the most formalized in how that they meet. And he asked that we go ahead and include all of the programs, because it is his goal to make sure that they're aligned across programs. Not only are they analyzing within each program, that then the nesting of those programs and how they report up through the strategic management process is a little more precise for their organization. So I found it really refreshing to have an agency head say, no, I know that's good, but I want it to be better. And we went ahead and added ARC into that as well.
Well, thanks for doing that, Chief. We appreciate you being transparent with everybody and making sure that you're doing things consistently across the board. As you stated earlier, it's about a process of getting better. So quality improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. Sal, I think we've got a question from you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Again, welcome to the table, and thanks for all of your efforts in producing a nice report here. My inquiry goes to criterion 5A on your community risk reduction. I love to see the word robust in front of community risk reduction. And there's a lot of, and I see you're putting a lot of efforts toward that. So my question centers around what's important with buildings and sprinklers, of course, is not only compliance with code compliance, but also with its ratings of the systems. So I'm a little curious on your NFPA 25 compliance that you or efforts that you do to make sure that buildings are receiving proper credit in that respect, which also aids in reducing on the insurance rating side, some of your needed fire flows and things like that to ensure you're getting that adequate credit. So I was just curious on how robust you're, how you're keeping track of NFPA 25 compliance on existing systems.
Well, I'll start off, and then I see Chief Hyde on one of the other screens, so I'll pivot to him to follow up and clean up anything that I either leave out or say incorrectly. But through our ISO rating, when we were attempting to lower, we were previously in 2015, give or take, reclassified from a 3 to a 1. And as part of that, we received a list where we were able to maintain an inventory of those buildings that require some independent evaluation. And I would say we're pretty aggressive with maintaining that. Chief Hyde, would you like to weigh in on the commissioner's question regarding NFPA 25.
Sure, thanks, Chief. I would say, we implemented a policy, and I think Amy's team kind of hashed that out with us on site where we adopted NFPA 1730 to guide us. And so we keep a pretty robust inventory of existing systems, and Rogers is, whether you can tell it or not, we're growing so rapidly that there is a little bit of a challenge to maintain that because of the number of systems we accept annually. So in 2019, I believe it was, we added a position specific to fire inspections and maintenance inspections. And I think that's just another testament to, we're a small to mid-sized agency, but we're very aggressive and robust. And those are our efforts. I think what you would see coming in 2022 is we're looking at systems that may make our hands-on approach a little more hands-off for us, but have a little automated through a third party.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I like to emphasize and recommend when you're going and approaching this in a robust manner, being able to get the full benefits of keeping track of those types of systems and that are effective, meeting compliance requirements, and are also getting that rating as a accredited sprinklered building when it comes to the insurance ratings and things like that. Sometimes that gets overlooked, but looks like you're on the right track. So very good. Thank you.
Thanks very much, commissioners. I don't see any other questions right now. Very evident from what we've heard, this is a very progressive agency that's committed to its mission and also committed to continuous improvement, which is, of course, what we're trying to foster here with the accreditation model. Not seeing any more questions at this time, could I ask for a motion to approve Rogers Fire Department for their third, I beg your pardon, accreditation?
Second, Jesse.
I think I heard John Butler moving, Jesse second. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, Rogers Fire Department, Arkansas, on your third accreditation. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Dongworth. Appreciate it. And a great job to our accreditation manager, Chief Hoyer. So always want to highlight him. Thank you all very much for this experience.
Thank you very much. And you take care and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Happy holidays.
All right, next up is going to be NAS Fort Worth. Just as a side note for your agenda, Robert Spolda informed us today that he wasn't going to be able to make the hearing, so Scott Kajawa is going to fill in. He's the L1 on the team, so that's the only change that you have, or that I have, that you don't see.
Can you say the name again? Scott Kajalva?
Kajawa.
Kajawa, thank you.
They're both in and connected.
Scott, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Got you loud and clear. NAS Fort Worth, you guys there? Chief McQuaig, can you hear me?
Chief, just a second. We're unmuting the mic.
Gotcha.
You hear me now?
Yes, sir. Sure can.
Okay, good, go.
Can see and hear you. Awesome. Chief Dongworth, all yours.
Thanks very much, Carl. Welcome, Naval Air Station Fort Worth, Joint Reserve Base, Fire and Emergency Services, Fort Worth, Texas. Your first accreditation. Congratulations for making the decision to step up and have your peers evaluate you based on your practices, as well as your commitment to continual improvement. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Scott Kajawa to do introductions of himself and the report and the leadership team at NAS Fort Worth. Scott, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Scott Kajawa, and I'm proud to present to you the report for Naval Air Station Fort Worth, Joint Reserve Base Fire and Emergency Services, and their bid for accredited status. In a moment, I'll have Chief McQuaig introduce himself and others from his agency. As you may know, I'm filling in for our team leader, Robert Sepulveda, and I want to thank him and other peer assessors, Mike Webb and Damian Kahau'ilio, for their diligent work leading up to and during the site visit. Naval Air Station Fort Worth Joint Reserve Base Fire and Emergency Service is a career organization with 43 uniformed personnel staffing 2 engines, 2 ARF companies at 1 fire station. All fire suppression vehicles are staffed with 4 firefighters and equipped to provide advanced life support. The base covers 6 square miles and is located 7 miles northwest of downtown Fort Worth, Texas. The Joint Reserve Base is home to the Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, and Texas Air National Guard units. The population served by the agency is approximately 11,000 personnel, Monday through Friday, with 40 tenant commands and other active duty units assigned to North Central Texas. We conducted a site visit earlier this year, and we found an agency that embraces the principles of continuous process improvement. The agency was well prepared and have either fully accepted the recommendations or have a plan of action for success toward improvement. Their dedication to the process is characterized by their actions, including their staff's commitment to fostering a culture of safety, which was very evident during the site visit. It was also evident that their base leadership is a strong advocate for the fire department. Our team identified 8 recommendations, which will help this strong organization become even more efficient in their operations. The fire chief and his staff are completely committed to the process, and I'm honored to present the agency with a recommendation for accredited status. I would like to take a moment to thank Chief McQuaig and his team for their hospitality during the site visit. And at this time, Chief McQuaig would like to say a few words and introduce his staff. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Good morning, commissioners. Definitely thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to afford us this opportunity to present our case for what we hope is accredited status. This is my personal journey, I guess you could say, an opportunity to be a part of this organization for the 5th accredited agency that I've had the luxury of working for over the last couple of years. And I can tell you the 5th, and I know we do this a lot, subjectively, this is the best team of those 5 organizations. From upwards of 200 some of the firefighters to our 43 that are assigned here. We have embraced that seed that has grown into what the product and the luxury we've had with Scott coming in to further validate what we hope is quality improvement through accreditation. I'd like to introduce my team. First off, my leadership, our executive officer, Commander Grounds. And next up, I have Sam DeSesa to his right, who is our assistant chief, one of our assistant chief operations, and our accreditation manager for this visit. Next to him, we have Nicholas Hagan, firefighter medic. Nick, along with the gentleman to my left, I'll introduce in a second, have stepped up to receive the torch as of today, if we're obviously afforded the opportunity to be accredited, to become our new accreditation manager. So our process of human capital planning and passing the torch is very important to us. And they recently went through the 10th edition quota workshop along with the peer assessor training. So our goal is to obviously receive accredited status to further push this process onto them as we extend and even deeper into our 40-man team. Behind me as well is I have, I apologize, Robert Crawford, Captain Robert Crawford,
I failed to introduce him. My apologies. He was a big cohort along with Nick Hagan, who's our data analytics lead, and Robert was our administrative lead as far as processing and logging all our exhibits for our FESM. Huge help. We're only 4 of 43 that had a load to carry in this process, and it's great to have them at the table. Behind me, I have Captain Elroy Key. He is our labor representative here today. Fortunately for us, one of our captains, which is amazing. He has been obviously a big factor with us, along with the team that is to his left and right. We did, unfortunately, I think we're all here now, come off a structural call. So we have people scattered throughout the room. So even though you may not see them in the field of vision, they are with us today to support in this process. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the executive officer for his comments.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. I would just like to say publicly how proud I am of this team we have here, how proud I am of Chief McQuaig and his efforts. And I will tell you, as a Navy pilot, one relationship you absolutely want to foster is that with your firehouse. And selfishly, I can say as the base executive officer for a naval air station, this relationship could not be better. The constant communication, the constant dialogue, the engagement nearly on a daily basis, no matter the topic, large or small, is crucial to the success that we've enjoyed. And I think is crucial for the way forward. Again, I thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. And I couldn't be prouder of this group behind me and with me.
Thank you very much to the team at Naval Air Station Fort Worth, as well as for your introduction, Scott. I appreciate that. We've got a couple of questions to start with here from, first of all, from Chief Dirksen.
Good afternoon, Fort Worth. Thanks for being at the table. Congratulations on a great report. Scott, thank you for clearing some things up for us in your comments. I was confused on why we had a Navy station in the middle of Texas. It made about as much sense as having a Coast Guard station in the middle of North Dakota. But I have a better understanding. But my question goes to the accreditation manager. We have several recommendations regarding program appraisals. And can you just tell me how you currently appraise the programs and what your plan is going forward?
Yes, sir. That was our recommendation number 4, working on our goals and objectives and tying those in with our annual appraisal process. Our annual appraisals, we look at all of those programs in a PCA, program compliance assessment, that really ultimately the Navy calls for, and then they delegate them down to the regions, and then the regions push it to the installations. So each individual fire department evaluates themselves, and then turns that over to the region. They send in some evaluators in person, similar to the accreditation team process, and they go through all of our programs in that program compliance assessment. There are about 400 line items that they looked at this last time. So what the accreditation team was looking for is basically we evaluated each program at a fairly basic level, and they just wanted a deeper dive into those programs. So Scott Kajala, chief there, he gave us his process to look at so that we can just kind of take what they've done and implement it for our installation. So that's our plan moving forward. Again, let's pass the torch to the new accreditation manager. He's spun up on it, obviously working together. And so we're pretty confident that the next time we come to the table, that won't be something we'll have to reevaluate.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that answer. Mr. Chair, if I could ask just a follow-up question or another question. To Firefighter Hagan, what does accreditation mean to you? You appear to be not one of the younger fellows in the room. What is that going to mean to your organization there?
I'm actually quite excited. So quick background on me, I was in the Air Force for 16 years.
before I ended as active duty in the Air Force, where fortunately there I was operating as a assistant chief. And in the Air Force, we have a program called FESAP, which isn't that different than accreditation. It's a program in place so that we can assess how we are functioning and constantly finding new processes for improvement so that we can continue growing as a department. And so when I found out that Chief McQuaig had high interest in doing that here at the department, I wanted every part of it because I found that to be a huge instrument and positive growth for our fire department when I was Air Force. And I know it's done that just in the time that we've chased accredited status. And so going forward, I think I could take some of those lessons learned from my time in the Air Force and help this department grow. And also some of the lessons learned while we've been going through this process and definitely during that site visit. So it means a lot to me. I know our department's going to continue to grow. We have an amazing team here. And so I'm just thankful and feel very blessed to be part of that process.
Well, thank you for your service and congratulations on making your life more complicated, as former Commissioner Tommy Thompson would say.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. Chief Keating.
Thank you. And obviously, your department is very well prepared for the first time around with such few recommendations. So congratulations on that. A soft place in my heart because I served in the Naval Reserve also for a number of years. My question is around Category 5, your EMS system. Noting that you're still doing patient reports by paper and realizing the possibilities of missing things and errors in that. What is the chance there was a recommendation around changing to electronic patient reports? Any progress towards that?
I'd like to introduce once again Captain Robert Crawford. Again, we felt it's important that we fair share this load, and I think he's got a reply for you, sir.
Yes, sir. So we've actually got tablets on order right now for the electronic patient care reporting. And when those tablets get here, the holdup is just going to be getting IT to approve those tablets for use and getting all of the security paperwork done, and all of it needs to be uploaded onto those tablets for the person reported correctly. And once that gets implemented, we'll implement that process with emergency reporting.
Perfect, excellent. And by the way, looking at the report, you have a very solid EMS and EMS transport system there. So congratulations on that.
Thanks, Chief Keating. As often with DoD agencies, we see really solid response time numbers across the board, but some where I look at your ERF for medical and particularly for hazmat, where you have currently a benchmark of 22 minutes for your ERF for hazmat, and you're kind of knocking that out of the park at 5 minutes and 26 seconds. I just wonder if there's any thought around adjusting those benchmarks closer to your actual performance right now. Has there been any consideration of that? Because that's quite a differential.
Chief, I'll talk to that one there. And obviously, our baselines and benchmarks are built a lot around DODI. For the 22 minutes, that's where that is derived from. As a credit agency, and obviously looking at process improvement, we're going to further develop that, as you stated, sir. We're going to take more of a holistic look. Nick Hagan has developed a new data tracker process. So we will be looking at whether we can change that benchmark going forward, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And that's often we get that response, understandably, very often from DoD agencies. But of course, it's something certainly to take a look at, because it certainly leaves room for the opposite to continuous improvement to happen, and you would still be within your benchmark. So a good operation for sure. Recognizing that you have some kind of organizationally set benchmarks in the larger family of the Department of Defense. I'm not seeing any other questions right now from Commission. Again, I would mention the fact of, I think Chief Keating was the one who mentioned again very few recommendations again for you, as particularly as a first agent or first time agency in the accreditation process, which is obviously a huge indication of an organization that is functioning very well, is committed to continuous improvement. So congratulations to that. Not seeing any more questions in the chat here, I would ask for a motion to approve Naval Air Station Fort Worth Joint Reserve Base Fire and Emergency Services for their first accreditation, please.
Chief Keating, move.
Thanks, Chief Keating. A second.
Moriguchi, second.
Thanks, Chief Moriguchi. I appreciate that. Any further discussion on NAS Fort Worth? Not hearing any. Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, Naval Air Station Fort Worth Joint Reserve Base Fire and Emergency Services, on your first accreditation. Unanimous vote. Well done. And again, really solid report. I hope you have some opportunity to celebrate this, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care there in Texas. Thank you so much.
Nice job, Scott. Thank you. All right, last one before the break, College Station.
We are deep in the heart of Texas, as the song says, right?
How you doing, Colin?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Awesome, thank you.
Everyone is in and connecting right now.
All right, thanks, Katie. Chief Man, you hear us all right?
Yes, sir. I can hear you fine.
Awesome. You guys are looking good. Sharp. Chief Dongworth, it's all yours.
Thanks very much, Carl. I appreciate that. Welcome, College Station Fire Department, College Station, Texas, for your second accreditation hearing. Thank you for coming forward again and continuing to commit to the process of peer assessment by a team committed to and a model committed to continuous improvement. Surely something that every fire department should aspire to. Let's, without further ado, hand over though to our acting team leader, I guess, Colin Fitzgerald, to introduce the report as well as the team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Yeah, my name is Colin Fitzgerald, and it is my honor to present the College Station Fire Department located in Brazos County, Texas, for your consideration. College Station Fire Department was originally accredited in 2016 and is home to Texas A&M University, including a famous TEACS emergency preparedness campus. First, however, I would like to recognize and thank our peer team, which was comprised of our team leader, Deputy Chief Holger Duray from Boulder Fire Rescue, Battalion Chief Ed Beardsley from Delray Beach Fire Rescue, and Captain Blake Boyd from the Town of Cary Fire Department. Unfortunately, Chief Duray was unable to be here, but I'm happy to fill in, and I hope to represent his report, the peer team, and the agency well. This team showed a high level of dedication and expertise as we worked through both virtual and in-person reviews, meetings, and interviews, compounded, of course, by the pandemic. Our initial team assignment occurred back in January with plans for a virtual site visit. We conducted our document review and ultimately recommended a 4-month delay in May, which the agency accepted with a commitment to address document needs. After the delay, the team re-engaged in September with a relatively short turnaround until the now in-person site visit. Because of the change to an in-person visit after the delay, the team lost an originally assigned member, Assistant Chief Mark Belton from RAF Lakenheath in the UK because of pandemic travel complications, and we gained Captain Boyd. The in-person site visit occurred September 19th through the 22nd. I want to thank Fire Chief Richard Mann, Accreditation Manager Captain Stuart Mars, City Manager Brian Woods, and the rest of the staff of the College Station Fire Department and the City of College Station for their warm hospitality and commitment to the organization. including quick responses to questions, readiness to address identified issues, and flexibility as we work through the visit. It is worth mentioning that the department had recently had an almost complete turnover in administration, including everyone previously engaged with accreditation back in 2016. The current staff included no current peer assessors, and the whole accreditation process was new to most. But this did not slow down their commitment to overcoming the challenges and getting everything right. The report before you contains 17 recommendations from the team's verification and validation process, many of which the department has already made progress on. One of the recommendations which immediately stands out is in regards to enhanced documentation for the effective response force within each planning zone. This recommendation touches Category 2 as well as all the response-oriented sections in Category 5. This recommendation was made as needed documentation and capability is missing in the current edition of the Community Risk Assessment Standards to Cover and Self-Assessment Manual. It was noted that the agency relied on an outside vendor and encountered delays while trying to update the needed areas. However, while on site, the agency was able to both show and document the quality of emergency response performance within each planning zone by risk type. After the in-person demonstrations, the team unanimously believed the agency was credible, but a recommendation was needed to complete the needed documentation. Likewise, in several other areas which received recommendations, the agency was noted to be credible and actually performing to a much higher level than initial documentation and references showed. In this case, it was very good that an in-person site visit occurred because the observational verification and validation was illuminating and crucial to our ultimate recommendation. I did want to highlight several areas which the team found unique and admirable. The department has a program where operational personnel up to the rank of driver operator are able to cross-train into the dispatch center and pick up shifts, which helps out during staffing shortages or during large events. This has resulted in a close relationship, which was obvious. In fact, one of the main interviewees during the dispatch tour was a driver who had obvious expertise and passion for emergency dispatching. Additionally, as stated before, College Station includes Texas A&M University. The close relationship between the school and the department was very clear, and we found key personnel from both agencies to be cooperative and understanding of each other in ways not always found in similar situations. Last, and will come as no surprise to many, but having TEEX as a resource in the jurisdiction makes available a level of training and expertise that most can only dream of. In fact, many of the department staff were noted to be faculty for the Emergency Preparedness Campus and Fire School, to the obvious benefit of both. In conclusion, the team found a department that is strongly committed to continuous improvement, and it was the consensus recommendation of the peer team that accredited status be considered for the College Station Fire Department. And now I can turn it over to Chief Mann to introduce this team and make some remarks.
Thank you, Chief Fitzgerald. Director, Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon from Texas, or maybe good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Richard Mann, and I am honored to be representing the College Station Fire Department for our second accreditation. I have with me City Manager Brian Woods, Assistant Chief of Administration Chris Kelly, Assistant Chief of Operations Robert Mumford, Fire Marshal Eric Dodson, and our department's accreditation manager, Captain Stuart Mars. I'd like to start by thanking our site visit team, Chief Dura, Chief Fitzgerald, Chief Beardsley, Captain Boyd, for dedicating their time and effort in identifying opportunities for improvement and pointing out some of our best practices. I'd also like to thank their respective departments for allowing them the opportunity to serve as peer assessors, which is very important. I'd especially like to thank Chief Fitzgerald for stepping up to fill in as the team lead for this commission hearing. As Chief Fitzgerald mentioned, we have a fairly new administration in our department. I've had the honor to serve as the fire chief of this department for the past 19 months after a 31-year career with Houston Fire Department, which, as you know, is the largest accredited department. One of the things that attracted me to the College Station Fire Department was the fact that they were committed to the self-assessment and self-improvement process, to the accreditation process. However, I will tell you that I was even more impressed when I actually got here and I realized the depth of buy-in, commitment, and understanding in the accreditation process throughout all levels of this organization, and the support that the accreditation process has from the City Council and the City Management Office. As a university town and home of Texas A&M University, this community places a high value on accreditation, and our fire department is one of 6 accredited departments within the city. This is a great department, but we are not perfect. The accreditation process will give us a framework to self-assess and self-improve as we continue to strive for excellence. We have begun to work on the recommendations that will continue to serve as a roadmap for our improvement. Since the site visit, we have filled the vacancy for our community outreach specialist, which is an important position, especially for recommendations number 2 and number 7. which specifically address performance indicators 2B2 and 5B3. We are adding a module to our ESO record management system that will allow for better tracking and documentation of public education interactions. As Chief Fitzgerald mentioned, during the site visit, we were able to demonstrate the ability to document emergency response performance within a planning zone to address core competency 2C2. Since then, we have invested in and are transitioning to a new data analytics that will allow us to improve the quality of documentation for each service type and risk category in each planning zone and include dashboards for each planning zone. We expect to have this completed to address recommendation number 3 by the time of the first annual compliance report. In addition, since the site visit, we've purchased ballistic protection for all of our frontline riding positions. We have submitted an AFG grant application for $209,000 to train all of our personnel in the Active Attack Integrated Response Program, which merges police, fire, and EMS into a unified public safety response during hostile events. Finally, and most importantly, I would like to thank the men and women of the College Station Fire Department. I know many of them are tuned in and watching this hearing right now. Accreditation is an acknowledgement of the outstanding work that you do each and every day to serve this community, and our commitment as a department to continually strive to improve that service in our quest for excellence. So I'd now like to introduce City Manager Brian Woods for his opening comments.
Thank you, Chief. I just want to start off by again thanking Chairman and Commissioners, and especially all those who came and took part in our evaluation, both on the College Station Fire Department team and those from the outside. As Chief mentioned, we truly are an organization that values excellence and continuous improvement. We think accreditation is a critical part of that. He also mentioned that in addition to our fire accreditation, our organization is accredited in police, public safety, communications, parks, public works, and water. So it's something we take very seriously. And we know that we're very fortunate to have experts come in from the outside. I was especially grateful to see we had representation from Boulder. We have some unique challenges in the college town, and we got some really outstanding feedback from that. Fire and EMS service is a bedrock of any community, and certainly a charge of city government. We're responsible for more than 120,000 residents in the city of College Station, and more than 60,000 of our nation's future leaders at Texas A&M, and it's something we take very seriously. And I want this commission and our folks to know that, one, I'm very proud to serve along with them, and that on behalf of the city manager's office and the mayor and city council, you have our commitment to make sure that we keep our folks safe and the residents safe. So I'm excited to take any questions and hear the feedback. I want to say how much I appreciate this process. I certainly always value the accreditations that we have in the city, but more than anything, I value the feedback we get, because I know that's how we get better, and we get better and we can serve our residents more in the line that we hope to do in the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, City Manager, as well as the Fire Chief and Colin from the team. I've got a number of questions lined up here from other folks. So let's start with Jesse, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon. Thank you. You've really done a nice job of talking about Category 2, both the team lead and you did as well, Chief. But I want to talk a little bit. Can you fill in some history for me? I mean, it seems like we might have had those, some of the data that was needed, but then maybe it was gone. Maybe that was a change in the administration. I'm just trying to figure out, like, what was there a gap? And obviously you have a plan for the future, but just historically, can you walk me through that a little bit, please?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of that comes in alignment with our data analytics, and I'm going to pass that question to our accreditation manager, Stuart Mars, because he's been intimately involved with that. Stuart?
Thanks, Chief, and thanks for the question, Jesse. So to fill in the gaps is what we had was an analysis of our performance for the entire city. We had that for each type of emergency and each risk category, but we didn't drill down deep into per planning zone. Our planning zones in the city are our fire districts. So we have 6 planning zones. What we didn't have in our SOC, but we were able to demonstrate when we had the peer team on site, was that we can look at our performance within each planning zone for each risk level and each type of emergency. So that's where we were. We didn't have documentation in our SOC, but we did demonstrate we can do that, and that's where we plan on having in the future a dashboard for each first in and each ERF for each type of emergency, each risk level within each of our 6 planning zones.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jesse. Let's go next to Steve Dirksen. Chief Dirksen, please.
Good afternoon, College Station. Congratulations on being at the table. Glad to see you're here. Glad to see the renewed commitment to the process and moving forward. We really do appreciate that. Jesse took my question, but in true form for myself, I always have a backup. So talk to me a little bit about how you plan to involve external stakeholders. There's a recommendation about that. I believe it's recommendation number 6. You haven't had that since about 2017. What's the plan going forward?
Yeah, great question. And really, we looked at this from a perspective of, in the future, what can we do for sustainability and resiliency, in the event that we have another situation as we've all endured for the last year. One of the things that we have done and are just finalizing, it's about ready to go live, is an online community survey. So that in addition to in-person stakeholder, information on an annual or biannual basis, we will be able to get continual feedback from our stakeholders in the community. And it's kind of a 2-part online survey. One is a customer satisfaction survey based on the service we provided. And the other is just general questions about what our community expects from their fire department. And that way we'll be able to continually solicit that information and put that into our data collection.
So what is the timeline for your planned in-person external stakeholder meetings?
Captain Mars, you want to handle that question?
So as Chief said, we'll have the online survey, and we kind of modeled that after what Rogers Fire Department in Arkansas, who you just spoke to, does. That's one of the departments we looked at for the idea and what type of questions to ask. So, but specifically for in-person stakeholder meetings, we don't have one on the schedule for that. We're going to use the continuous stream of feedback from the online survey, which is both expectations and a review of our performance for people who have interacted with us, to get that feedback continuously. And we will look for opportunities to have in-person interactions with stakeholder groups, but we'll always have that. The plan is to always have that survey up and live on our website, so we have people, we can always send people there, and we can push them through our community outreach specialists can push them through social media outlets to our website to fill that out, and just crews, when they interact with people in the public, can push people towards our website to get access to that survey.
No, that's great that you're using the survey. I would just encourage you to look at other options to engage with the community, as surveys aren't always, you don't get the response that you always want as well. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. Let's go to Chief Moriguchi, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is probably for the team lead regarding recommendation 4, where it says recommended department assess resiliency through deployment policies and such. I just wondering, could you expound a little bit more on that recommendation?
Sure. Yep. So what we found was, and I'm looking at to make sure I don't misspeak. The department primarily relied on actual incident history to evaluate, major incidents, to evaluate its resiliency through its various, deployment levels and the types. And so our recommendation was based on, because there, especially for a lot of the major events, there wasn't really any data to fall back on. There were certain areas that then the resiliency hadn't been tested. So, we were looking more along the lines of, having like a training drills or other ways, however they chose to do so, but find ways to make sure that they were, everything was up to the par it needed to be without, the actual incidents to test it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief Moriguchi. I think Chief Butler, you're next.
Yes, hello to everybody. In category 4, I learned that EMS revenue that's recovered goes to the general fund, to the general citywide budget. do you have any sense of how much or percentage goes to the fire and rescue and EMS service? I know it goes to the general fund, but do you have any sense of how much that is recovered, makes it way back to the agency?
And so are you referring directly to the percentage of our general fund that the department gets? So
EMS.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the department gets around 24% of the general fund comes to the fire department. As far as the amount of money that we recover, if that's what you're referring to, you know, I look at it as all our recovery goes into the general fund. So our recovery is about $2.5 million roughly, plus any additional permits and fees like that. So it goes into the general fund, but we're funded out of the general fund. So we do everything we can to, you know, we're a consumer, not as much of a producer, but you know, the money that we do get goes into the general fund to offset some of our $22 million in funding.
And you bill for permitting, inspections, and code permits as well?
Yes, we have some of those revenue streams as well.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Chief Butler. I'm not seeing any other questions right now from Commission, so I actually have one. As I looked at your, in category 5, I looked at your response times, and for your ERF in your urban areas, it looks like you've got a fairly significant deficit there. And again, you know, when I look at the numbers, I see your first due, you're doing well in all the areas. I think there's at least one other area where your ERF quite isn't there, which really speaks to you've got your distribution right, but in some ways maybe your concentration isn't quite there. Just wondering if either team lead or the chief could just speak to that briefly, and maybe any thoughts you have around moving the benchmark performance closer to the baseline.
Chief Fitzgerald, do you want that or do you want me?
I can just elaborate on, I know that we actually had discussions with the department about those gaps, you know, those came directly from their SOC. And we did point out that, you know, it'd be more beneficial to have obtainable goals as far as their benchmarks go that were closer to their benchmarks. And we dug into, you know, how they were actually coming up with their benchmark goals. So going along with like the recommendation for category 2 and some of the others, we felt like their overall approach to correcting the way they were gathering data was going to address this as well. But definitely, Chief Mann, please elaborate if you have anything more.
Yeah, I think, again, we're using some of the NFPA benchmarks as far as our effective response force. I would suggest, you know, we're getting close to our benchmark for the first unit on arrival on scene. The biggest gap is in our total ERF response. And part of that comes from our staffing. We do have 3-member staffing on our apparatus. So we have to basically get an additional heavy apparatus to the scene to complete the ERF. So that is probably the biggest gap. We are looking at some opportunities for that by maybe utilizing an ambulance personnel for potentially dispatching an additional ambulance. So we're looking at a couple of different options that may increase our response time for our ERF.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chief. So it just, you know, like you say, you're real close on that first due, and you're right. The fact that you have 3-person staffing is probably going to be part of the explanation as to why the gap is much bigger when you get to that the ERF compared to the first due. But I appreciate the explanation. It's something that's hopefully that's something you can work on into the future. Either, I guess, hopefully. You know, improving that benchmark performance, or potentially, I think, as the team leader spoke about, perhaps it's the baseline that needs to be adjusted to the reality of your situation. Probably not as desirable a solution, but it's certainly a solution. I'm not seeing any other questions from Commission here. So with that, I would ask for a motion to approve College Station, Fire Department College Station, Texas for their second accreditation, please.
Move to approve, Dirksen.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. Can I get a second?
Jim Keating, second.
Thanks, Chief Keating. Any further discussion on College Station Fire Department? Not hearing or seeing any. Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, College Station Fire Department, College Station, Texas, on your second accreditation. Well done. Again, great report. Obviously, lots of great things happening in your organization. So congratulations, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and your consideration, and appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thanks very much.
Good job, Colin.
So I think we're at that place where we have a break. We're probably a little ahead of schedule. Do you think the agencies will be ready if we just took 10 minutes, or does anyone need more than 10 minutes, or just to get some sense of what commission would like?
Yeah, 10 minutes is good for me.
10 is good here too.
Okay. And will the agencies be queued up, do you think, for, I would say, maybe 45, whatever? I guess you're at 1:45, right? So 1:45, we get back together.
Yeah, we got two of them lined up in the waiting room right now, so we
Perfect.
should be all right. And I'll have Cindy maybe give a call ahead, and we can make sure they're all lined up, ready to go.
Perfect. So let's get back together at 1:45.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl, I'm still available after.
Awesome. All right, folks, I'm seeing 45 minutes past the hour. Everybody doing okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Doing all right.
Katie, anytime you're ready for Lee Summit.
All right, can you hit the record button, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mhm. All right, both in and connecting right now.
All right, thanks. John O'Neill, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
There you are. All right. Lee Summit, how are you doing today?
Very good, sir.
You guys hear us all right?
Yes.
Awesome. Chief Dongworth, they're all yours.
Thanks very much, Carl. Welcome, Leeds Summit Fire Department, Leeds Summit, Missouri, for the hearing for your second accreditation. Thank you sincerely for coming back to the process of continuous improvement and being assessed by your peers as well as yourselves. So without further ado, I would hand over to Team Leader John O'Neill to introduce the report as well as the team. So take it away, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I had the pleasure of serving as the team leader for the Lee Summit Fire Department site visit. On the call with me is Chief Mike Snyder and his team. In just a moment, I'll let Chief Snyder introduce the rest of his team and any honored guests that are present. We visited Lee Summit October 17 through 21 of this year. The members of the peer team are listed in your report, and I thank them for their service supporting the CFAI processes and accreditation. The team validated the department meets its stated performance objectives within their SOC. The department demonstrated compliance with all core competencies. The team's recommendations for continuous improvement are documented in your report. In my follow-up conversations with the department and Chief Snyder since our visit, they have already started working on many of the recommendations and have shared with me their plan of action moving forward. I do thank the agency and their staff for being readily accessible during our site visit and transparent with their information during our interview processes. It was clear to the peer team the agency's leadership and department embraces the process and the continuous improvement model. With that, the peer team recommends accreditation for Lee Summit Fire Department. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Chief Snyder. Chief.
Thank you, Chief O'Neill. Good afternoon. As mentioned, my name is Mike Snyder, and I'm honored to be in front of the commission today, serving as in the capacity of Fire Chief for the personnel and citizens of this great community. I'd like to first introduce the team with me today. City Manager Steve Arbo, Assistant Chiefs RB Todd and Brian Osterman, Data Analyst Caroline Wiggins, Engineer Casey Smith, and IAFF 2195 President Bryce Buchanan. There's also several additional members with us in the room, as well as listening, that have and continue to play an instrumental part in this process. I personally want to thank the entire team for their efforts and, more importantly, their commitment to the department to ensure we are providing the best services possible. I would also like to take time to thank our peer assessors led by Chief John O'Neill. I'm very appreciative for their efforts prior to, during, and after the site assessment. I look forward to continue to build our relationship as their input provided to us is invaluable. In regards to the recommendations, I want to let you know that we immediately began assessing them to determine what action plans would need to be established to address them in the most effective ways. I'm happy to report to you all today that we're already progressing with 12 of the 16 recommendations, of which 3 we have completed. The 3 completed were to formalize the process to validate and adjust critical tasking as needed, to identify rescue technicians on our daily staffing documents, and to develop a formal and documented appraisal process for our health and wellness program. As mentioned, the 13 remaining recommendations are all being assessed, or currently a plan has begun to improve in these areas. In addition to the recommendations, I was very pleased with several best practices that were identified by our peer assessors during our site visit. I know that the best practices identified are a small glimpse into the many great things our personnel are doing to serve both our internal and external customers. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of the commission today with our team, and I look forward to answer any remaining questions that you may have. Now, I would like to again introduce our city manager, Steve Arbo, to provide some comments. Mr. Arbo.
Hello to the accreditation group and Chief O'Neill. We were very pleased to have you and your team with us and to be able to host you in our community. As has been mentioned, this is our second process through this. I was here for the first process. In fact, as a city manager, I was here for many years prior to us being able to achieve the first accreditation. It is a very difficult achievement. It's not one that comes easily, but it is one that is worth the energy that's given to it. I was just telling the folks that are here that represent the fire department how proud I am of them, not only for the success that has happened with this achievement, but what it did is it provided another opportunity for me to see how well they work together as a team, not only in the fire department, but cross-departmentally with the city as a whole, because no department is alone in their success, and it takes an entire city organization to support each other. So on behalf of the city organization, I want to thank you for the visit and the interest that you gave us. And I will echo what has already been expressed by Chief Snyder, that the balance was perfect in allowing us to celebrate some of those outstanding model policies and procedures that we have been following. But you also gave us very good and clear indication of where improvements could be made. And we are very serious about pursuing those. One final word that I will say in my gratitude is that we also know that your expectations and your standards and what you measure changes from process to process. So I think that's really an outstanding way of keeping us on our toes and encouraging us to remain focused on finding new ways to better serve our community. Thank you.
Thanks very much, City Manager, Team Leader, and Fire Chief. I appreciate all those comments. I've got a couple of questions in the queue, and I'm going to start with Ken Holland, please.
Great, thank you. Now, welcome. This goes to Chief Snyder. You commented that you're working on several of the recommendations, and I just was wondering if you could speak to specifically recommendation number 12 as it relates to the incident safety officer.
Yes, thank you for that question in regards to the incident safety officer. So currently within our system, our battalion chiefs, which is one of our operational chiefs assigned a 24-hour shift, is responsible within their job description to serve as the safety officer. We recognize that that was a great beginning, and through the recommendation here, we've sought out additional opportunities to ensure that we're providing the equal and same training across the board for all of our chief officers, and then expanding into our acting chief officer roles, and then we'll be transitioning down into the captains as well. That initial training has been scheduled for April of 2022 for our initial staff.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken. Let's go to Chief Keating, please.
Chief Snyder, it's great to get to see you again. It's been a while. My question is under Category 5, Community Risk Reduction. There were 3 recommendations into that particular criteria, and it really deals with adding a little more strength. Basically, first of all, analyzing your workload in that division, and possibly finding ways to support the needed manpower for that. Can you maybe give a little bit of overview of what's the plan with that?
Yes, very much so. Thank you, Chief. Specifically speaking in regards to the assessing the workload of our prevention and investigation unit, we have established a 5-year staffing plan that we are looking to begin to implement as we identify new funding sources moving forward into the future. Part of that staffing plan acknowledged that we have areas of needed improvement within the prevention division and within investigations, and we are exploring ideas of adding personnel to 24-hour shift to serve in those capacities. Our original plan was to staff 2 investigators per shift using operational personnel. Unfortunately, with reassignments and realignments, those have not been stayed, and we've had to supplement more often with our 40-hour staff. We really feel that that opportunity of those 24-hour personnel assigned in future as that funding is identified will be a great resource for them.
Sounds like a good plan. Thanks very much for that answer.
Next question, I think, is Chief Dirksen, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Lee Summit. Good to see you at the table. Congratulations on being here for a second time and a good report. My question goes to Category 9B, the communication system. First of all, if I understand correctly, your fire department operates as a secondary PSAP to the Lee Summit Police Dispatch?
That is correct.
Okay, and then are all your times reflective of the time when the call comes in to the primary PSAP, or is it after they hit the secondary PSAP?
So our data previously has only included from processing when it reached our secondary PSAP. We were just within the last 12 months able to start assessing that data as it's been provided to us by our regional provider of our 911 system, and we are looking to include that as we move forward.
Do you have a time frame for that, Chief?
Time for implementation of that?
Yes, yeah.
We anticipate to begin occurring very shortly.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. I have a question, and I think it probably ties maybe into recommendations 1 and 2 around again, it looks like on your performance charts in the report, certainly on the first two, you're very close in terms of your baseline to your benchmark. When it moves to ERF, it seems to get a bit further apart by some margin. So again, again that points to probably really good distribution of resources, but perhaps not the concentration that you need to achieve your ERF. And again, there's a recommendation around outliers, which may be part of the challenge here in terms of recording some calls that are way out there in terms of response time, which skew your numbers. And there's also talk of critical tasking in your validating and adjusting your critical tasking as recommendation number 2 in your report. So I wonder if you could, hopefully that makes sense. Maybe I'm not tying these things together correctly, but I suspect they're all linked. So I would ask for maybe the chief to respond to what perhaps you're going to do to move, again, those baselines and benchmarks closer together, which can involve, I guess, moving either, but preferably, of course, by moving your baseline performance.
Well, I appreciate the question and definitely understand it. I'm going to do the best to answer it since it crossed over multiple recommendations. First, addressing the outliers. We originally had put outliers in place because we didn't have any through the first accreditation process. And we know that those need to be refined as we move forward. And we're currently in progress of discussing that with our response and performance outcome committee. So hope to have a refined outlier policy in place here in the near future. Specifically talking to critical tasking, we took that near and dear to our heart, that recommendation, and immediately went into place, put a plan in place of establishing a project team to meet and review that critical tasking so we could make changes based on our current data, as well as establish a plan to make sure that we are analyzing that on an annual basis. I'm happy to say that that committee met on November 11th, reviewed all of our incident types and critical tasking, and have made recommended upgrades to our SOG 14 that is currently in the training phase of implementation with an effective date of January 1. I think from that point, we'll be able to continue to assess that. I think you also hit something that was very, very key. Our distribution does seem to be correct based on our first unit arrival. I will say we had some gaps to our north and south that we are very excited to announce that in the last tax issue, the city was able to secure funding to build new stations for those facilities, but also look at addressing moving those. So we are going to be addressing some gaps to our north and south on the first due arrival process. In regards to concentration, we face a geography issue of we're a very long but narrow city. We are continuing to look at that in that 5-year staffing plan so we can further address it as we move forward.
Thanks very much for your response to that, Chief. And interesting how there's some interconnectivity for sure between those things. But yeah, appreciate the response. I'm not seeing any other questions from Commission. Am I missing anyone here? And
Chief, I have another question if there's time.
Oh, go ahead, Chief Dirksen. There's always time for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. My question is to the person representing the local. I'm glad to see that you took the time to be here. I'm glad that Chief invited you to be part of the process. What was the locals' involvement, and what do you see as the biggest advantage of being a 2-time accredited department?
Well, we first off, we support the accreditation process wholeheartedly. We look at the validation that takes place through the self-assessment, and it provides ownership for our members into the process. The local, the accreditation manager kind of through this process was a member of the local. And so we're fully invested in it to improve what we see and how we can improve throughout the whole process.
Perfect. And I would just challenge you as you meet with your peers around the country, around your state, your region, that you continue to bring forward the good things about accreditation and encourage other departments to be accredited.
Will do.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. Again, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I would ask for a motion to approve Lee's Summit Fire Department for their second accreditation, please.
Chief Keating, motion.
Chief Keating, thank you. Second?
Second, Dirksen.
Thank you, Chief Dirksen. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, Lee's Summit Fire Department, Lee's Summit, Missouri, on your second accreditation. Well done. Again, obviously a great report, and you're doing everything right here for sure. Even though, as you've said, you've got some recommendations, they're well underway. 3 of them, I think I heard, already completed. That shows a real commitment to continuous improvement and being true to the CFAI accreditation process. I'm sorry, I keep lapsing into Canadian. With that said, have a great rest of your day, and thank you again for being with us here today.
All right, next up, Valley Regional Fire Authority, Washington, State of Washington.
Team and team lead and connecting.
Chief Thompson, how are you doing today?
Good morning. Doing very well. Thank you.
Awesome. You hear us all right?
Loud and clear.
Bill, you hear us all right with and have a good connection out there in the desert?
Yes, I hope. Have
All
a
right.
wind event today.
All right. Chief Dongworth, all yours.
Thanks very much, Carl. Welcome, Valley Regional Fire Authority, Auburn, Washington, I beg your pardon, for your first accreditation. Thank you so much for committing to this process, and thank you for being here today. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Team Lead Bill Stark in the desert to introduce the report as well as the team before we hand over to the Commission for questions. So please take it away, Bill.
Okay, good day, Commission. I'm representing the Valley Regional Fire Authority in Auburn, Washington, and they cover 3 cities. I quickly want to thank the team that helped me with this site visit, and it's Sal Scarpa from Columbus, Georgia, John Henderson from Torrance, California, and Jeff Lucas from Fort Lauderdale. We visited just a couple months back, and so it hasn't been very long. And Valley Regional is in the Seattle region there in the south side, and we're the first regional fire department in the state of Washington, and that's a unique a fire authority, I should say, pretty unique. We made a number of recommendations. They have some innovations that we thought were unique. I do want to talk about one of the recommendations. Had I looked at it, I would have rewritten it, but it has to do with the safety officer. I want to make sure that it's clear that they have plenty of resources. It was, we're only there for 3 or 4 days. We didn't see anything that gave us reason to make this recommendation, but in our interviews, we felt that there was a need to look further because we think their incident commander holds on to being the safety officer longer than is necessary. So I just wanted to point that out. The agency has updated me. They have all the answers I think that you will need, and we recommended them for accreditation. I'll turn over to Chief.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Brad Thompson, and I have the pleasure of serving as Fire Chief at the Valley Regional Fire Authority. Sitting next to me, to my right, is Deputy Chief Dave Larberg, who is our accreditation team manager, and he oversees our technical service operations. To my left is Deputy Chief Rick Olson. He is our operations division chief, including the training and apprenticeship programs. To my far right is Noah Chang. He is our data analyst and the strongest contributor to our accreditation efforts. Behind me is our Chief Financial Officer, Mark Haraski, our Human Resources Manager, Sarah Borden, and as we all know, nothing is accomplished without collaboration. Representing IAFF Local 1352 is Captain and Executive Board Member Tyler Eliason. I would like to thank the commission for this opportunity and for your dedication to continual improvement of the fire service. Also, thank you to team leader Bill Stark and his team of assessors, Sal Scarpa, John Anderson, and Jeff Lucas. They were professional, informative, and very helpful throughout the entire process. Thank you also to Jim White, who assisted in the writing of our FESM documents. Accreditation has been a long-term goal for the Valley Regional Fire Authority. First efforts were made over 12 years ago. I would like to acknowledge that retired Chief Brent Swearingen and retired Deputy Chief Kevin Olson for their absolute dedication and effort to implement this project and really committing to the process. Captain Ryan Freed, Local 1352 President, can't join us today, but quite frankly, he wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for his involvement from the very beginning. I would like to thank all the program managers, the subject matter experts, and the administrative personnel who contribute to this voluminous body of work. And without everyone's contribution, this simply doesn't happen. Lastly, our Board of Governance demonstrates an incredible amount of support to the VRFA on a daily basis. All of the recommendations from the assessment team are specific, valid, and attainable. I'm happy to report that we've already started on several. We're dedicated to the process more than the designation. Our goal is not for the label, but more importantly, for setting a culture of continual improvement here at the Valley Regional Fire Authority. From this process, we've already created many valuable documents, serving as our roadmap, including our standard of cover, our community risk assessment, a 5-year strategic plan, and a 6-year capital facilities plan, and a comprehensive self-assessment. These serve as foundational documents, providing direction toward continual improvement in organizational excellence. I assure you, we are committed to the process and remain humble and motivated in our mission. Thank you. With that, I would entertain any questions or comments from the board.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks, Bill, for your introduction as well. We have a couple of questions for you. Sal, I think you're up first.
And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the table today and a great report. My question comes from Category 9, Criteria 9A under water supply, addressing the hydrant maintenance issues that were reported and the ratings of 66% and 45%. Working with several water purveyors can be very challenging getting data and can have various supply works capacity issues and things like that. So I want to just know under the recommendation how you plan to coordinate to not only get maintenance records, but also effectively flow test information that will help you in planning your water supply operations.
I'm going to let Deputy Chief Dave Larberg answer that, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we knew this would be coming, especially in 2022. We have a WSRB rating, which is our ISO rating in Washington State, and we totally understand the importance of testing maintenance of our hydrants. We have the water supply accounts for 35% of our WSRB rating. So we know the importance of this, and we're going to continue to work with our water purveyors, the cities that we work with, and help them understand the importance of the reward that we would get back on proper maintenance records, testing, inspection of our hydrants going forward for the WSRB rating. Again, we're helping the citizens and becoming more cost effective in our service model.
Okay. Yeah, because you know how that it's challenging enough in some water distribution systems where you can have, when you're comparing your needed flows to what's available, but then to also go on top of that, the hydrant maybe not operate properly adds an extra burden there. So yeah, I would definitely I commend your stressing that importance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Jesse, I think you're up next.
Thank you. I think it's the township administrator in me, but I have a question about category 1, and the question might be best answered by the team lead, but there's a recommendation regarding the organizational structure going back to maybe the finance and administrative divisions are supporting the authority. However, it might not be structured that way. So can you talk to me a little bit about that recommendation and what you were looking to see there?
This is Brad Thompson. I'm happy to report on that one. I have been working. Last night we had our annual or our monthly governance meeting where they approved a new organizational chart that actually more accurately reflects the reporting relationship between finance, human resources, and the fire chief. So that was approved at a board meeting last night. We're going to implement that on January 1 of 2022.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jesse. Let's go to Ken.
Great, thank you. And this goes to Bill, the team leader. And it's just, so looking at the report and the number of recommendations being 22 overall, and yes, it's the first time going through. And I think, just that number alone, I mean, that's an opportunity for improvement. I think that's, just looking at that number as an opportunity, should they get accredited today for the next go around. So, and then with 12 of them being core competencies, I guess, can I just get your take on that and your comfort level with that list of recommendations? And it's obvious your comfort level because you're recommending them for accreditation, but it just sometimes it's good to hear that stuff too,
Yes, my comfort level was very high. We when we make recommendations, the teams I work with, a lot of them are based on they're doing it, but we want to give them emphasis on what they need to focus on. And it happens to be core competencies. And honestly, when I'm going through here, I don't try to limit the number of core competencies. I find what stands out and we identify. And I knew this agency just by looking at what they were doing would be able to handle all these. And so we were very comfortable with it. If you've looked at my reports before, they'd probably be similar for new agencies.
And thank you for that. And to the chief, I'm going to assume, or I just, I want to make sure that you have the support of your team moving forward to make sure that you're going to be able to hit all of those, as many of those recommendations as possible, should you become accredited today and then decide to go through it again in the future.
Yes, thank you for that comment. And we are dedicated to continual improvement. That is the culture we're setting here. I just would like to clarify that we have already done quite a bit of work towards many of these recommendations, including the safety officer program that was mentioned earlier. For example, we've changed our structure on reporting our progress on our strategic plan, making it more of a visual chart that we can report more frequently. So there's many different things. I could go down the list of adjustments we've already made, and they are all very attainable, and I'm confident we're going to get there.
Okay, that's great. And that's good to hear. And job well done. And thank you for, for answering that question. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks to you too, Bill. I do appreciate you being, willing to answer that as well.
Thanks, Ken. Great question. Just as you anticipated the question around water supply, I'm sure if you've been listening to the last couple of hearings, literally the last couple of agencies, you'll have anticipated this one as well, which is around, again, that question around, it seems like you have your distribution of resources in your fire authority, pretty close to having your baseline close to your benchmark. Not quite so much so for consistently, actually, across most of the measures there, not quite so much for your effective response force. And again, it ties maybe a little bit to recommendation number 2, which is around turnout times, although one would expect a more equal impact on first due as well as ERF, as they're the same units if turnout times is part of the discussion there. But I'm wondering just if the chief or one of your staff would just talk about that a little bit. Sometimes it's geography, sometimes it's topography, if there's a difference. Maybe just talk a little bit about this finding, as well as what your plans are to address this.
Sure. We rely very heavily on our data analyst, Noah Chang, and I'm going to give him an opportunity to answer this question.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously we have some gaps, as you can see. The first thing to point out is just our biggest gap on the moderate risk fire ERF. You can see the low end value, only 24. And as you know, with low numbers of calls, it kind of skews the numbers a bit. But we have taken a number of steps to start addressing this and plan to also address this in the future. We recently updated our station orders using a GIS methodology to ensure that, the quickest unit will be arriving. And so those updated station orders, we expect to see some improvement in the ERF. Additionally, as you may know from the report, we are looking at land to build a new station in the north of our service area. And that should add another engine resource, which should lower the ERF gap as well. And then finally, probably the biggest contributor to that gap would be our single ladder resource in our department, which is currently being cross-staffed at our headquarters. And we have just made the decision to end the cross-staffing. And so the ladder resource will be in service full time. So that ladder arriving on scene will definitely lower our ERF time. So we're confident that we can lower this gap that exists.
Great. Thank you for that. Those are all really great answers and things that will impact, I'm sure, your ERF. Just maybe speak a little bit about what your plans are, though, for recommendation number 2 in terms of what are the kind of things you're going to try here to reduce your turnout times. Because I know that's a challenge for many of us, including myself. So I'm not being smart about this, but I'm always interested to hear what agencies are thinking about doing to address this challenge.
Yes, thank you for that comment. I'm going to let Deputy Chief Rick Olson answer that.
So we've already begun to educate most of the crews on the importance of what these turnout times are. In fact, we implemented a new reporting system through ESO Fire starting December 1. It's a little bit more modern of a system for people to understand and capture the data that we're looking for to make that happen. We do quarterly meetings with our company officers, monthly meetings with our battalion chiefs. And so all of this data, as we gather it quarterly, will be used to get people to understand the importance of what getting out on calls actually is, and how it plays into how we're going to be continually improving our organization. The other part of this is we have communication kiosks across all of our stations now, and we use a 2-minute shot clock. Or what our time will be, a shot clock, to kind of get people out the door faster and continually educate them through those communication kiosks.
Great, thank you. And as I say, it's one of the more potentially controllable parts of our response time continuum. So it really warrants attention from us. And just starting out with information to our personnel can often be very helpful as well. What we find in particular is, of course, is nighttime. It's more of a challenge than daytime for reasons that we probably all know as well. So, but thank you for that response. I'm not seeing any further questions in the chat here. So maybe I could ask for a motion to approve Valley Regional Fire Authority for their first accreditation, please.
I'll make that motion, Holland.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. A second.
Second, Dirksen.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. I appreciate that. Any further discussion on Valley Regional Fire Authority? Not hearing any. Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, Valley Regional Fire Authority, Auburn, Washington, on your first accreditation. Great job, great responses to our questions today. Great report, obviously lots of opportunity as we've identified, and but certainly very comforted by Team Leader Bill Stark's comments that this is certainly within your reach, and certainly from what we hear from you, there's a commitment to make these improvements for sure. So thank you very much, and thanks for joining us today, and I hope the rest of your day goes well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Right.
All right, Bakersfield Fire Department, Bakersfield, California is up next. A lot of first-time agencies this go around.
That's good to see, though. I think it's
It is.
refreshing.
All right.
How you doing, Ed?
Is in and joining right now.
All right,
I'm doing
thanks,
well.
Katie.
How's everyone?
Very well. You hear us all right?
Yes, sir.
Super. Good morning, Bakersfield. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Hear me all right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Chief Dungworth, floor is all yours.
Thanks, Carl. I appreciate that. Welcome, Bakersfield Fire Department, Bakersfield, California, to the hearing for your first accreditation. Certainly applaud your efforts here in choosing to adopt this process where you self-assess, you're assessed by your peers, all with the intent of continuous improvement and better service for your community as a result. So with that all said, I'll hand over right away to Ed Byrne to maybe introduce the report as well as the team from Bakersfield. Thank you.
Commissioners, good afternoon. Appreciate the time today. I present to you the Bakersfield, California Fire Department. Our team visited October 10th through the 14th to verify and validate that their submitted documents were credible. And indeed, we found all the core competencies and performance indicators in line and credible. This effort would not have been possible without the acknowledgement for my fellow team members, Jerry Hardison, Larry Moore, and David Hoppy. They did an outstanding effort in making the site visit a success, and also to the Bakersfield staff and the accreditation team for their hospitality and also the flexibility during our time together for that week in October. Bakersfield shows a high level of dedication and engagement to the continuous improvement model and their service delivery platform. I'm happy to report that in just a little bit over 9 weeks since our visit, Bakersfield has begun processes to implement all of the team recommendations and have completed or are at near completion 3 of those recommendations. Throughout the ongoing challenges of the pandemic in their region, Bakersfield continued to show resiliency and ingenuity to deliver uninterrupted high-level emergency services despite a significant revenue reduction. It's my honor and privilege to recommend the Bakersfield Fire Department for accredited agency status, and I'll turn the floor over to Fire Chief John Frando.
Thank you. Good day. My name is John Frando, Fire Chief of the Bakersfield Fire Department. Logged on today in Bakersfield is the Bakersfield Fire Department Accreditation Manager, Deputy Chief Bill Ballard, and City Manager Christian Clegg. We are honored to be in front of the commission today. Our journey to get to this point began some 3 years ago. The city and the department have made serious investments, not necessarily referring to a monetary investment, but countless hours of time invested in by external stakeholders within the community, but also internal city and department stakeholders. I would like to formally recognize Deputy Chief Bill Ballard for the amazing work that he's done to guide us to this point, as well as anyone else who contributed along the way, including retired Fire Chief Anthony Galageza, who retired just over a week ago today. For the Bakersfield Fire Department, this process was not simply about checking boxes, rather a way for us to truly open our books to see what we're doing, if those ways are effective, and to look for ways to improve. We are committed to a continuous evaluation of our operations moving forward towards continuous improvement. I would also like to thank the peer assessment team for their frank discussions and recommendations. Next, I would like to introduce to you City Manager Christian Clegg to say a few words.
Yeah, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Christian Clegg with the City of Bakersfield. I just wanted to reflect really quickly on some high-level perspectives. Our City Council and from the City Manager's Office and executive staff, the Fire Department has our full support. The City Council is a supportive body. They are engaged in the policy considerations that they should be. I would like to reflect from my own part. I think there is both the support from the City Manager's Office as well as strong coordination and engagement with the Fire Department, aware of their opportunities and needs, and do our best to provide the tools and resources to help them take advantage of those opportunities. We have gone from a resource-challenged environment in the last years to a more resource-rich environment, and it's provided us some opportunities to be strategic in our rescue squad deployment and our use of data analytics and get at some of the tools and resources that make us a different, tier department than we could have been otherwise, and I think have positioned us very well for accreditation. And would just like to put a thank you out there as well to the entire command staff and to the team, but in particular, Deputy Chief Bill Ballard has been a champion in making sure that this process is a learning process and a growing process to make us better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your time and comments. I would like to turn it over for questions at this time. Deputy Chief Ballard had been working very closely with retired Fire Chief Anthony Galageza on a lot of these recommendations, so he'd be very well versed in answering a lot of the questions for you, but we can definitely chime in from the city manager standpoint and myself as well.
Thanks very much, Chief Frando, as well as City Manager and Ed Byrne. Appreciate your introductions. Let's go first to a question from Chief Dirksen, please.
Good afternoon, Bakersfield. Congratulations for going through the process and being at the table. Appreciate seeing the city manager as part of the hearing here today. My question goes to, and I was glad to hear the support of the city manager of the fire department in the program. However, my question goes to recommendation number 1, that the CRA SOC be presented formally to the city commission or city council, whatever you might have there. What is the steps for that process, and have they been brought along in the process as you walked through this?
Yeah, thanks. I'll go ahead and take that question. It's a good question. I would answer that latter part first. City council, both on our strategic plan that the fire department has recently adopted, as well as accreditation, has been brought along in the process. I have weekly check-ins with the council members and reviewed the strategic plan for the fire department with them. In those check-ins, I've provided them both some written and verbal updates on the accreditation process. They're actually very excited about this. I think that's good news. I think the formal adoption, the steps to that are to agendize that in a city council meeting. And we'd like to actually treat it though as a workshop item where they can have some conversation and some dialogue about that. And then we receive and file, but essentially that's their way of formalizing and recognizing the recommendations and the body of work that's there. And we're looking at that in our first quarter of next year, having that workshop with City Council.
Great. Yeah, I would encourage that be done as soon as possible, because there's a lot of things written in a CRA SOC that are important for the fire department to move forward, plans built, coverages and things like that, that it's definitely need the buy-in of the elected officials. So I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Sorry for that. Just struggling to find my mute button. Let's go with Chief Keating, please.
Okay, thank you, and congratulations to the department for putting all the work into seeking accreditation for the first time. And a very good report. I have 2 questions, both dealing with health and safety of firefighters. And the first one would be recommendation number 7. And obviously reading the report, you have a large number of stations, and I get the idea that a number of those stations are older. And the recommendation basically stated doing an engineering study of the life safety systems in those stations, and then coming up with a plan to basically upgrade those to somewhat of a modern standard for the safety of the people living in those buildings. Any comment on that, of what your plans are?
I can take that one. We actually have a great capital improvement project within the city, ways that we address facilities and infrastructure. That will actually go through a process during budget times. In fact, we'll be beginning our budget planning for the 2022-23 fiscal year very soon, and that will be something that we can collaborate with our partners in Public Works and General Services to try to address, identify and address those needs. There'll be some discussion on how to fund those projects as well, and then the planning for those and pushing those through the finish line. Definitely a process, but we have the full support of the city manager's office, Public Works, and we work collaboratively to identify and address those needs in this upcoming fiscal year. Definitely there'll be projects that will need to be delayed as we prioritize what work needs to be done, but it's actually a very good mechanism that we have in place during budgetary process to identify and address those needs.
Thank you. It sounds like you really thought our plan out really, really well. And the most important part of that, you have the city government support in trying to allocate funds for the more priority projects. My second question is being able to do 100% of NFPA 1582 compliant physicals for your operations staff on an annual basis. Are you looking at that also?
One of the other things that we've been in touch with our HR, human resources for the city, those are things that would definitely need to be addressed through a meet and confer through the labor union to make sure that we're not violating any part of their MOU. But it's something that the HR director and I have been in discussions about perhaps putting on the plate as part of the negotiation process moving forward.
Perfect. Excellent way to handle that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Keating. Chief Butler.
Yes, good afternoon. In category 3, I read about the chief designates 3 deputy chiefs to be strategic initiative managers. I'm also getting the sense that there are some challenges with disseminating information or the content and the access to the strategic plan. Can you tell me a little bit more about that model? Why 3 deputy chiefs? And are deputy chiefs the number 2s or in the organization? Is there any diversification of the managers? Are there some civilian inserts in the command staff with regard to the managers? A sense of that climate and the culture and who's the leaders of the initiatives and how is it being disseminated throughout the department?
Yeah, so let me briefly state the first part of, or the last part of your question, then I'll turn it over to Chief Ballard, who may have been in discussions with Chief Galgeza, may be able to summarize everything for you. Yes, the deputy chiefs are number 2 in charge. We do have 3 deputy fire chiefs who are number 2. We distribute the workload administratively amongst those 3 deputies, and we try to disseminate information through battalion chiefs. So a lot of our workload is also distributed down the ranks to battalion chiefs and eventually to the frontline members, firefighters, captains, and engineers. Chief Ballard, do you have any information on that with your discussions with Chief Galgeza?
Yes. So as far as the dissemination of work, it logically fits into our already established responsibilities. And so what the deputy chief is tasked with is formulating a task force that will solve our basically start process towards achieving our overarching objectives, our goals, I should say. And we've made headway on a number of our strategic plan initiatives. Task force have been established, and those groups are working towards achieving that. One in particular, is training division, is tasked with promotional exams and entry-level tests. And it just logically fits that the operations chief that oversees training division delegates, and that task force solves or comes up with a plan on how to handle one of our overarching goals, dealing with diversity. And so we're working on a plan to solve that, and that each one of those has been assigned and addressed. The second part of the question was dealing with the dissemination of the goals and objectives. And I'd like to speak to that, just the things that we've done, since the site visit. Our strategic plan and standard of cover have been placed on department webpage, so it's available not only for department members, but also for our external stakeholders to view. We've also had our strategic plan placed in a training. It's Target Solutions, which many of you are probably familiar with, which requires that employees actually log in and acknowledge that they have read the document, or at least have viewed it. And so we have taken measures to communicate those goals and objectives through those two methods.
Okay, thank you. It seems like you're progressing in the right direction. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Chief Butler. I'm going to jump in again, only because I feel compelled to, on the response times that we see in the charts here. Maybe this is also a comment for something for the team leader to comment on as well. Particularly, I look at your fire numbers. There's some challenges in medical and some of the other areas as well. But it looks like you have a fairly substantial data set of 400 calls for moderate risk fire suppression, and you're getting a first unit on scene in like 12 and a half minutes. And having said that, ironically, the ERF is coming much closer to your benchmark, which maybe speaks to the distribution may be a challenge as opposed to necessarily the concentration. Although when I go to your high risk ERF, you're also struggling on the ERF as well. I just wonder if you would speak to that briefly. I know there was some conversation. The chief was talking earlier about a new facility, and particularly as we've got the city manager online as well. Obviously this is something that would need some resources to address. But I just wonder if there's any comment you would make to that, Chief.
Chief Beller, do you want to address that?
Yes, certainly. So some of our response analytics are related to our data set. And it's because of the way that data was input. We've identified some issues or inconsistencies with the way that it had been input in the past and corrected those. So the data that most of the data, two-thirds of it, was prior to us implementing some of the policy, procedure, and business practice associated with data entry. And so there are some anomalies in there. I have some ways of screening or filtering that, but we lose a lot of our data set when I do that, just because of the data cleanup that's required. Moving forward, we'll have a better, more clear picture of what our actual numbers are, just because of the way that consistency with data being input. Does it answer the question okay?
Yeah, thank you. I was just again struggling to find my mute button. No, that's good. I mean, sometimes there's all kinds of explanations, and if one is your data set isn't there, the one thing I would just maybe ask the team lead is, did you see evidence of the policy and the data collection process being maybe looked at with more rigor moving forward to ensure that the data will be more reliable in the future?
Yes, Chief, that is absolutely correct. Bill and I spent an inordinate amount of time on a daily basis, combing through the data sets to make sure that the part of the data that they're responsible for and part of the data that's coming in from Kern County as well, we're able to be matched up. Bill has a dedicated, essentially a code writer that works as a contractor for him. So any data runs that I needed, he was able to get those within the hour. One of the other issues that they have addressed is turnout times. As we know, that's a component of the total response time, and that does affect, obviously, first unit. They do have some distribution issues that are a part of the capital improvement plan. So the overall picture is, yes, they are aware that some of the times do, on paper, appear to be a little slow. They are able to absolutely identify the opportunities for improvement in the data sets, where they're placing equipment, and what we can do to get on the road a little bit quicker. And I'm confident that, in the 9 weeks that we've been there, if we ran the data set right now, it would be improved.
Thanks for that, Ed. I appreciate that. I'm actually, sorry, go ahead.
If I may also, just from my own perspective, from the executive perspective, weigh in on, because you did sort of ask that question from the resource standpoint, I think it is worth addressing. One of the nice aspects about Bakersfield is that we're a growing community, and we anticipate our population growth will continue. We are a bit spread out. We've had some conversations in our own planning about densification and what that does for efficiency of operations and response times in general. And we're starting to see a little bit more of an urbanized environment, which means we have to address other fire safety issues in other ways. But from a resource standpoint, as I mentioned, we are in a more resource-rich environment than we have been. We've got a new full cent sales tax available to us to deploy those resources strategically. That's what did allow us to deploy our rescue squads. We actually see that as an important strategy in some of our more urban areas where it may not be a new station in that location right away, but can we add some rescue squads that can help with our overall response times to some of those ALS or BLS calls. But also with a growing community, we know we're going to need to add some stations to the parts of town that are seeing that growth as the city expands. And we're setting aside funds to do that. We actually have what we call it a known contingencies funding source, expenses that aren't here today, but we know are coming. And we're able to put away into those reserves for these purposes. And we have a public safety carve out in that, because we have some police and fire needs for growth on a resource level. So we anticipate some of those new facilities, but also in the very near term, know that there's some opportunities to get at some of those response times with innovative service delivery models that we also look to probably deploy some resources to.
No, thanks for that perspective as well, City Manager. I appreciate that. Beyond the fire chief's response and the team lead's response, that's helpful. We all know that growth, one, it's going to impact all of your services, not beyond fire and police. As it happens, we're a growing community as well, and I know there's members from other growing communities around this table. And of course, with growth comes a higher call volume for fire specifically and your EMS services, which then attaches the importance of reliability to your distribution and concentration. So great to hear the response. I appreciate that. That's what I was looking for. So I'm not seeing any further questions from commission, in which case I would ask for a motion to approve Bakersfield Fire Department for their first accreditation, please.
So moved, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse. A second?
Second, Dirksen. I think John beat me.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Chief Butler, if you don't mind, just so Chief Dirksen isn't on every one here. So fabulous. Any further discussion on Bakersfield Fire Department? Not hearing any. Any opposed? Congratulations, Bakersfield Fire Department, Bakersfield, California, on your first accreditation. Good report. Again, lots of recommendations for you to work on and to move forward. So, and again, appreciate you stepping up to the assessments and the commitment to the continuous improvement model that CFAI promotes for sure. Thank you so much for being here today, and hopefully you'll have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
All right, folks, last one of the day. Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach.
All right, all in and connecting right now.
All right, thank you. Seal Beach, how we doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, this is Nathan. I can hear you.
Hey, Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay, stand by. Chief Whitmore, are you with us? Seal Beach, can you hear me?
This is Commander Lee Warner. I've got you loud and clear.
Super, thank you, sir. Trying to get the fire guys.
Carl, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I can.
This is Chief Whittemore in the group.
All right. So you hear us loud and clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Chief Dongworth, all yours.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that. Welcome, NWS Seal Beach Fire and Emergency Services California, your second accreditation hearing. Thank you for continuing your commitment to continuous improvement and better serving your community as a result. Without further ado, I'll hand over to team leader Nathan Schooling for an introduction of the report and the team. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Nathan Schooling, team lead for the Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach Fire and Emergency Services Peer Assessment Team. First, I'd like to thank the team members, Matt Fisher, Jake Leeper, and Ray Lamro for volunteering their valuable time and experience in helping to make this a very successful site visit. I'd also like to thank Chief Whittemore and Chief Rios and their entire team for the hospitality and cooperation during the site visit. Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach is located approximately 25 miles southwest of Los Angeles. And it specializes in ordnance support for the Department of the Navy, surface warships, medium-sized amphibious assault ships, and Fleet Marine Force units. The installation also provides maintenance support for exercise mines, anti-submarine torpedoes, and air defense missiles. The fire department, Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach Fire Department operates a single engine company fire station with extensive mutual aid support from the Orange County. The team conducted a site visit on October 10th through the 14th and found an agency that was fully embraced the CFAI model and demonstrated a commitment to excellence throughout the organization. Since the site visit, the agency has fully implemented most recommendations and has made progress on all. I do have to say that Chief Whittemore and Chief Rios, once we made our recommendations, the team was very aggressive in implementing our recommendations. And the team unanimously recommends accredited agency status for Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach Fire and Emergency Services.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioner.
Mask.
My name is Matt Rios, newly promoted to Fire Chief for Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach. Deputy Chief Whittemore has been involved since the start. However, I've been part of a accreditation process in several other departments and I support the Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach organization business model for a continuous improvement. The team worked very hard and put tremendous amount of time and effort into evaluating programs, analyzing data, and looking for gaps to improve. I truly appreciate the team's visit and the recommendations provided. And I'd like to now introduce some of our team members. To my right, I have Jose Velasco, engineer, who is our future accreditation manager. Next to Jose, I have Andre Ramsey, who was also a big part of our accreditation team. And we have Steve O'Brien, station captain, who is our current accreditation manager. Next to me, we have Chief Whittemore, who was played a big part in the accreditation prior to me coming up to Navy Weapons Station Seal Beach. Off to my left, I have Station Captain Ralph Nadler, firefighter Miguel Gonzalez, and our future Assistant Accreditation Manager, Mike Villegas. I'd like to now turn it over to Chief Whittemore.
Good morning, Chairman, Mr. Chairman and Commission. It's meant so much to me to stand with my department team in August as a peer assessor team came and gave us a hard look, validating all the work that we had prepared over the past 5 years. I became the Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach Fire Chief in 2019, knowing that it was the only accredited department within our region. At the time, I knew that I would be only with the department for a short time, as the previous fire chief had taken a job overseas and had return rights. My focus while at Seal Beach was to instill the accreditation process and model into our daily work. I wanted to be an agent of change and to change prior stigmatisms and get back to the basics and promote industry best standards. I had personally gone through quality improvement classes and had sent a few of my firefighters to these classes as well, and worked with other agencies on accreditation. As you know, the peer team came out and gave our assessment in early October, and on November 11th returned a page of recommendations that we have received and already started working on. There were many, but we've already dissected them and addressed them, appointing a point of contact and written SMART objectives to address the remainder. With us virtually is Commander John Lee Warner. He is the executive officer here at Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach. I would like to take a minute, recognize and thank him for all the support he and the installation have been through our process. Commander, do you have any remarks?
Hey, thanks, Chief Witt. I appreciate all the hard work that you guys put into this as well. For the chairman and the commission. Yeah, as you said, I'm the ex-executive officer here at Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach. And I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity. I'm really excited to help represent all the hard work and the dedication that I know that they put into this over the last several years. So with that, I'll just turn it back over to you guys and let it proceed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the introduction to your team and your report. I have a couple of questions in queue here from the team. Let's go first with Chief Dirksen, please.
Good afternoon, Seal Beach. Welcome to the table for the second time. This question really goes to the team leader, Chief Schooling. Recommendation number 2 has about, I would say, 9 or so performance indicators tied to it regarding performance appraisals, and that there needs to be, it was lacking something measurable. Is what you found on site verified and validated that they are a credible organization?
Yes, sir. The recommendation was we did validate that the organization met the intent of the performance indicator, and that an assessment was conducted for each of the categories. Our recommendation was to add a little more teeth some quantitative measures to make sure that the assessment, just to improve the assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chief Dirksen. Let's go to Chief Keating, please.
Yes, thank you. You guys are a positive example for smaller departments, and I hope people pay attention to that. Your small staff, I can only imagine the work and the load that certain people had to take on in order to basically even do this for the first time, let alone for your next time around. So congratulations on that. My question is on recommendation 6. And to me, out of everything in the report and all the recommendations that I read, this one probably sticks out the most, knowing that you're operating with a very, very limited staff. And basically that recommendation is updating your policy regarding a structure fire that would require a rescue. And then likely you're only responding with 3 people to the scene, of how important that policy would be, that somebody wouldn't get themselves in trouble. So can you tell me, have you made any progress on that?
We have currently been working on our SOPs as well as our mutual aid agreements to strengthen our partnership and to combine our SOPs to be one, to follow the same procedures.
Just to step in a little bit further on that, we've taken the SOPs that the region has produced, as well as looked at our mutual aid partnerships. And since the peer team visit, we've dived down and taken it a step deeper so that we could address specific issues like that with a given rescue in a structure fire. We are uniquely positioned in Orange County, where we have 2 fire stations, which are just outside of our fence line. So part of our ERF is our mutual aid partners, and that's how we would address that. And it's so written in our SOP.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the answer. Glad to hear that.
Thanks, Chief Keating. Let's go with Chief Moriguchi, please.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon. So Chief Keating actually asked the same question I was going to ask. So I've got to back up. As you mentioned, you have a pretty strong reliance on mutual aid in order to meet some of your response requirements. Do you train often with your mutual aid partners, and how is, if you do, how has that improved over the course of the past 5 years or so?
Yes, part of our mutual aid agreement does include training. We have been added to our mutual aid's quarterly EMS training as well as fire training, along with some surrounding departments such as Camp Pendleton, Miramar's live fire training. And we are working currently on a joint training for shipboard firefighting orientation for the outside agency, as well as ammunition or safety.
Right, good, thank you. And just one more follow-up to that. Do you have a common means of communicating with your mutual aid partners? What I mean is, are you able to share a common operations channel, or do you have to share radios?
Yes, sir. Orange County Fire Authority has provided us with their radios. So when we get dispatched outside or working with them, we do utilize their channels and their radios.
Very good. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Moriguchi. I had a question around recommendation 8, which is around the diesel exhaust emission system. And it seems like you have a system that's been inoperable for 2 years or 2 cycles, maybe longer, I guess, if it's 2 cycles, and also where the connection seems to be missing the connection for the exhaust outlet on the truck, I'm assuming. Can you speak a little bit about how you'll go about taking some action on that recommendation, please?
Hey, Chief, this is Captain O'Brien. I'm the current accreditation manager here. It's a good question. Something we've definitely glad that the team included in the recommendation process to give us a little more leverage with our administrative controls here. We do have an annual industrial hygienist that comes and inspects the facility 2 years running. She has written it up, and we have pushed that up to the regional AdCon to get results. It is a naval facilities project that was installed previously and had been working and requires their expertise to come back and realign it correctly. We're getting talks right now about budgetary constraints, but it is in the works up at the regional headquarters to be processed through this year. So we're hoping it's a quick resolution.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I'm sure you're as aware as anyone in the fire service of the, the cancer risks that are attached to diesel exhaust, amongst many other toxic substances that firefighters come into contact with in the course of their work. And again, it's probably one of the more controllable ones. So I'd certainly encourage you, as well as your people further up the chain, to make some progress on this one moving forward. It's got to be a relatively small item financially compared to some other pieces there, but certainly would encourage everyone to treat that as a priority. With that said, thank you for the response. I don't see any other questions from Commission, in which case I would ask for a motion to approve unless there's any last questions.
I do have a educational, for my own edification.
Sure.
How does the department get its annual physicals? Just for my own, I'm not very well versed in military affairs. Fire.
Take this.
How do you get your annual? Is it 1582? For a team that small? I was just wondering what's the report?
This is Station Captain Ralph Nadler. I can answer that question for you. We have a small little occupational health facility here where we do our physicals in a part 1, part 2 basis. In the past, Camp Pendleton has sent a doctor up here to do the actual, call it hands-on part of the physical. And the part 1 consists of the blood work, the spirometer, just your good overall EKG, overall health. And then the doctor comes up, verifies everything, and then signs off on it. Currently, because of COVID, everything now is done at Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton. So we all have people, we send them down and they do it all in a day now. Whereas before it would take 1 day for part 1 and then there would be a break. And then when the doctor was available, he would come up here. So now it's all done in 1 day. It's a little time consuming, but it works.
Thank you. I was just wondering, it's such a small fighting force unit.
Of course.
Supported.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Chief Butler. Great question and great response as well. Not hearing any further questions, I beg your pardon. Can I get a motion to approve Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach Fire and Emergency Services for their second accreditation?
Butler, so moved.
Thanks, Chief Butler. A second?
Chief Keating.
You second.
I heard Chief Keating. I know there was someone else too, but thanks, Chief Keating. Any further discussion on Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach? Not hearing any. Any opposed? Not hearing any. Congratulations, Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach Fire and Emergency Services, on your second accreditation. Well done.
Thank you.
Great report. As pointed out, a pretty small workforce there with lots that you're already doing, and it seems like a few more things you need to get done. So best wishes on achieving that. So and appreciate you being here today. Please have a great rest of your day, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you. And if I could just say one more thing, I'd really like to thank Chief Fagan and Chief Piercy, who were part of the TAP program as we rewrote our CRASOC. They were tremendous help and are just a phone call away throughout this whole process. Chief Schooling, thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We'll certainly pass that on.
Thanks, guys. Congrats.
We had a good football game this past weekend too. Good game.
Congratulations, guys.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you, sir.